Hello, Real Chat. Hello, hello. Happy Thursday. How is everybody? Hi. Mel May, watch streak. 65 streak for Mel May. We'd love to have you here, Mel May. Oh my god, first time getting to catch a stream live. Welcome, Banana Split. Hi, everybody. Rob, hello. Everybody's here. I think it's going to be a really good Theory Thursday today because you're all here. Okay, so you guys, we do this in the mornings before switching over to what we call our real stream. So if you like what we've been talking about, if you're interested, if you want to know more, and you would love to see more with sources pulled up on the screen, come join us over on Twitch. That's what we do there. So it's twitch.tv/Madeline Pendleton. We talk about current events most days. Today, we will be talking more about theory, left-wing political theory. So if you don't really understand much about left-wing politics, people are always telling you to read theory, you don't know what that means, and you think it's really annoying, come join us. We'll read theory together, and we'll make it really easy for you. Hi. First time here. Welcome. My scarlet sweater. You made it out of Burger Reich. Nice. Happy to have you. How many people do we have in Real Chat? I know I just popped up, so it usually takes a little time for everybody to come in. 80. Okay, yeah, we gotta wait a little bit. I was way too eager with that one. They'll come. If you build it, they will come. Artistic Betty, hi. A core group, Lilith, coming in from Virgo's waiting room. Yay. Hi, Virgo. Hi, everybody. Yay. What's up? Gay Bomb Raid. We love to see it. Hold questions for, we have a set time that we do a Q&A. Okay, somebody named Emily is saying that they're muted on our chat. Is that on purpose? Do we know who that is? I know I did make up Lilith. Yeah. We're gonna catch all the OnlyFans guys. We're gonna bring them in here. We're gonna trick them. We're gonna get them. Emily. Not a mod, but I believe I remember Emily. Hegel's Big Dialecticals muted you. What'd you do, Emily? Oh, Emily, are you 14? Are you baby? I think I remember you. Are you baby Emily? Sammy also. They're all muted. Well, you know what? How do we feel about maybe doing a day every few months where we mass unmute everybody? And then we give them another shot. Emily's 14 but doesn't want to be muted. I think that, I don't know. I don't have mod control. The mods, they speak for themselves. So, Sammy, you're banned because you're a literal Nazi. Emily, stick around. We like having you there, but, I think you're young, and they just, maybe do a little learning. Before you join in a combos, I think is the general vibe over there, which is totally okay. Sometimes we all need to be told that. That's all right. So we're happy to have you there, and I think over some time, maybe we'll unmute people in a while. Yeah. But, Sammy, you're a Nazi. You're not ever getting unmuted, babe. I got a restriction for bullying. For calling Sammy a Nazi. Okay, hold on. Emily. I said I didn't like Stalin. People were not happy. We can all have different opinions. I mean, that's true, but I think the thing is if you're in a Marxist-Leninist live stream and you don't know a lot about Stalin, and you're not really open to learning and hearing other people's perspectives, they might just get annoyed with you. It might just be like, oh, this is detracting from other people being able to have conversations. But I think if you stick around with us, you probably learn a little bit more. I do feel like, what do you guys think, mods, about once every 2 or 3 months we unmute everybody and give them another shot, and then if they act up again, they get. Okay, yeah. Hegel's Big Dialectical says that you were also provoking people a lot. And they didn't want to have, fighting and heated chat. We wanted to keep the chat productive. So that's what was going on. So maybe your wording, maybe how you were wording it was a little confrontational for people. And they just didn't want to deal with that. Yeah, totally. And we get that you're young. We get that. I was probably way worse than you at 14. I was an anarchist. So, it happens to the best of us. So, it's okay. But stick around with us. And probably in a little bit, we'll do a mass unmute for people and let them try again. But yeah, if the chat feels like you're not contributing in a positive way and they're really distracted by it, they're the ones who are going to mod you, not me. I'm hardly paying attention to the chat most of the stream. So, I'm so sorry. That's what they do. Kim's Pleasure Squad. I actually am Kim Jong-un. I have the pleasure squad. They're mine. It's my harem. My Japanese sushi chef, who is affiliated with the Japanese intelligence of the government there, which is real, has accurately reported on my pleasure squad of my harem. It's my harem. That's real. Yeah, that's me. I did that. I'm sorry. I'm taking accountability now as Kim Jong-un, who I am, for my pleasure squad, which is definitely real. Which is definitely real. Yeah. I think they'll come around for the chat in a bit, probably. How does one get a position on the pleasure squad? Well, you got to be 12 years old. That's important to me, as Kim Jong-un reported in Western media, because I am a pedophile and a white supremacist somehow. They must also all be white children who push trains in their off time. So if you are a child who is white because I'm a Nazi and pushes trains for fun, you got a real shot at it. Just gonna get clipped. Yeah. You've heard of clickbait. I'm now making clipbaits for the liberals. Thank you. Yeah, I'm really doing it out here. I'm really... you do like trains, so you got a shot at it. Yeah, but since I'm the worst person in the world as Kim Jong-un, you gotta really be suffering. So then I gotta come in there and just take advantage of you. Yeah, because I know as Kim Jong-un, I give a lot of importance in the party and in my work to making sure everybody has housing and shelter, and food and healthcare, and that's really important to me on paper. But it's secretly, actually, I'm evil, and I want to kill everybody. That's why I give them houses and healthcare. You wouldn't get it. You're not smart enough to get it. It's fine. Okay. Big Yahoo. Oh yeah. If you're a left com, you need to actually read the song. Then they do. They do. The left coms actually do need to stand by that. They don't even know what they're critiquing. They do need to read LaSalle. Okay. Anyway, the housing is a manipulation tactic. Why? The United States is fucked up to our people and we don't give them free houses and everyone appears to be fine with that. Why do they need to give them free houses in North Korea to manipulate them? Are you joking? Oh, okay. Well, somebody asked if I was in Kim Jong-un's pleasure squad, and I said I actually was Kim Jong-un. And the pleasure squad was my harem. Yeah. I'm not sure. Emily wants to know what kinds of things were too upsetting so that she, pronouns? Are your pronouns she, Emily? Could make sure not to say them again in the future. So, just... I don't have a favorite tank. I don't know enough about tanks. That's why we have to do the Weapons Wednesday, so I can learn about the tanks. Oh, people said kind of derailing energy. She, her. Okay. Okay, that's okay. That's all right. Larry says you kept talking about Lysenko. Yes. I think people were trying to teach you, but you were really, really resistant to accepting the fact that you might be propagandized on these issues. So I would say at least be open to learning. Be open to hearing other people out without fighting back against everything they say. I think that's probably it. Okay. All right. It's your messed up ex's 21st birthday. Well, maybe they'll die of alcohol poisoning. I don't know if they deserve that or not, but that's just a thing that could happen. So I don't know how you feel about that, but it's a potential reality. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not saying I want them to. I don't know. I'm just saying that could happen. And if that makes you feel better to know that, I'm not saying they should. I'm just saying it could. I don't know. No value judgment about that. Okay. How many people do we have in here now? I'm getting off to a good start. Real weird energy today. I've talked about somebody dying of alcohol poisoning on their 21st birthday. I have admitted I am Kim Jong-un and I have a racist child pornography pleasure squad. I am extra unhinged today. I'm not mad though. It's not Fuck Off Friday, so I'm not mad. I'm like in a peaceful, unhinged kind of, it does make you feel a little bit better, knowing. Okay. Okay, so Emily, you can talk to us, you can talk to me, and you can talk to the mods on Twitch, but that way everybody else can't get derailed by you. So that we think is a fair compromise. So you can talk to a few people on there. Extra Unhinged doesn't want to fuck tanks. Who knew? I'm a little chaotic today. I'm feeling a little chaotic today. That's what it is. You know? Okay. Yeah, that's good. Come join us. Alright, what are we at? Are we at 200 yet? The tank dating simulator. I do it. Okay, that's pretty close. Alright. I'm gonna hang up now. Alright, I'm gonna get done with you guys. So come join us in a real weird mood today. Over on the real stream. It's on Twitch. Twitch.tv/Battle and Pedals. Come join us. Today is Thursday. We will be learning about theory together. So if you don't know a lot about left-wing politics, you're interested in learning more, this is a place to do it. It's actually a really good community. Everybody there is smart and funny and nice. And we will be learning about theory. It'll be great. Hi, Emily. Yes, some of us can see you. Yes. So the only people who can see you are me and the mods. So the rest of the people can't see you, but we'll be here. And if we see something, we'll talk to you. I'm still on TikTok. I'm saying this shit on TikTok. I don't even care. What are they going to do? Call me a weird bitch? They already think I'm a weird bitch. Why not? Okay. Hi, welcome. First time chat. Big Mama 99. Okay. I'm going to hang up here. So come join us over on Twitch. We'd love to have you. All right. Hi. I feel a lot more free since I just started unapologetically being myself on TikTok. But welcome, everybody. Welcome. Some of you, it's your first time here, and we're really, really happy to have you. Welcome to our stream. So we call our stream Double Down. We double down on our politics and the news. Oh, first time chat, fake propaganda. You're new. Okay, welcome. So here's kind of how the streams usually go. We start off with a Q&A. We'll do a 10-minute Q&A. I'll set a timer and I'll let you know when it starts. And you can ask me absolutely any questions your heart desires, and I'll just read them from top to bottom until the timer goes off. Then after that, we'll get into our regular content for the day. Since today is Theory Thursday, it's a little different than a normal stream. On a normal stream, we talk about current events. So today we'll be talking about theory. And what we will do is we will have a submission opportunity for 5 different texts of theory. I think my submission today is going to be one we had left over from last week, which is religion and socialism. And you guys will have a chance. The first 4 people who get theirs in when I tell them to at the specific moment, we'll all vote on those together, and then we'll review some theory. And with the last 30 minutes of the stream, we will take a look at our map where we map the current geopolitical alliances of the world to get a better understanding of how these countries are interacting with each other and why. Okay, so that's what we're going to do today, everyone. So I'm going to start off. I am going to add 10 minutes on the timer. All right? And when this starts, you'll be able to ask any questions. The questions can be about politics, about me, about anything. And go. 10 minutes on. Let's go. I don't think we've done Oman yet. How is Fork? Fork is okay. She's in bed. I added a stool so Fork can take care of her own bed privileges, which is very cute. So now she can let herself in and out of big bed. However, Fork has a bladder deformity. I don't know if you guys know that. And I tried to order re-ups on her medication twice, and it just nothing happened. They didn't came, and I was so confused. And finally I reached out, and it turns out I had missed the deadline for the expiration of her prescription by 2 days. So she's been without her bladder medication now since Monday, which is a big deal. So because she has a lot of accidents. It basically, she's not in pain or discomfort, but she can't control her bladder when it happens. So she's literally just leaking pee. So I've had to do a lot of cleaning around the house, which is quite annoying for my small disabled dog. And she's got that going on, and I have a flat tire in my car. So I can't go take her to the vet until I get the flat tire fixed on my car. So I gotta go to get the flat tire fixed today. And this is my life. This is where we're at with Fork. But she's happy. She has no clue she's leaking pee all over the house. I just have to chase her with the fabric cleaner, the carpet cleaner, and the enzyme destroyer, and one step from putting her in a diaper. We'll see how it goes. Okay. Why do you think Eastern Europeans demonize communists so much and try to force empathy for the Nazi relatives? So I don't think they actually do en masse. Some people do. Some of them do. But even when you look at, I made this thing. I made this document that I've been using a lot. Wrong thing. Hold on. Screen share. I don't know if you guys have been using this at all since I shared it in the Discord. I find this very useful, this document. So this is something I put together that's just all, out of the 28 countries that used to be communist, that we have data for, there's a few that we don't, that then switched to capitalism, 20 of them still preferred it. So when I look at this, there are some places, you're right, like Croatia, Czechia, Estonia, Latvia, Poland, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan are the countries that don't miss communism. They're outliers, you know. But for the most part, most places do, actually. So I think that they are just a very loud and vocal minority of weirdos, basically. And they get a lot of media attention for it because everybody wants to uplift these pro-Nazi, anti-communist ideas. Do you still play your Cali accent for stream or only for TikTok? So this is not my Cali accent. This should not sound like a California accent to you. This is my media voice in general. Does this sound, okay, I can't see what you guys are saying, but this should not sound like my California accent. This should sound flat. I'm holding my voice flatter for you guys. So if I'm going to talk in my actual voice, it's a lot more like this, and you guys don't like that. So I flatten it out intentionally, and I kind of do like a weird media voice for you guys. So this should not sound too annoying like a California accent. This should be not California. I don't know. What's the story about the Paris Commune? They had a successful worker government for 72 days, and then it fell apart. Marx was very excited about it, you know, but it fell apart. Not enough state, probably, to keep it together. Cautionary tale. Left comms are obsessed with it for some reason. They're like, no, but the Paris Commune worked for 72 days. Come on, get your shit together. What the fuck are you talking about? So it's kind of that, I think. Do I make 13-year-olds push trains and or make them eat rats in hospitals? I actually make the rats push the trains, and then they get eaten by children in hospitals. That's how that order of operations goes. Make the rats work first. Can we watch a funny video while we vote? Of course, we will. How do you get a job when disabled? I don't even know how you get a job when not disabled. It's so hard out there right now. I have no clue. I am so sorry. Very, very challenging. A lot of people are just trying to do like at-home stuff themselves. It's wild. I think there's a reason why people with disabilities are disproportionately represented in things like sex work, because it's something they feel they can control on their own, which isn't, you know, to each their own, right? But this is a struggle that a lot of people deal with. A lot of people do not know how to find consistent steady employment while disabled. And if you live in the United States where I live, disability payments are so low, you cannot actually live off of them. So it's this horrible catch-22. But then if you make enough money, then you lose access to your health insurance. It's just a mess, really. It's horrible. So I'm so sorry. I'm not quite sure. Okay, Tal. My history teacher is kind of a conspiracy theorist. I asked her why she didn't like communism. She said she wants to own things. And I said that we differentiate between private and personal property. And she agreed with me. And she was like, okay, I like it then. And we also agree on Burkina Faso and Namibia being resistance against the Western hemisphere. How do we convert conspiracy theorists to Marxist-Leninism? Because in my experience, it's easier than converting a liberal. You know, it's because they want to be contrarians. They want to feel like they have secret hidden knowledge. And you're like, but the real conspiracy is just that a bunch of rich guys own everything and they control the rest of us. I think that's what you do. Use that to convince them the real conspiracy is just the bourgeoisie controls everything. They don't care about us. I think that's what you do. The real conspiracy all along. Okay, when did I come out as non-binary? Probably 5 years ago, something like that. But it's something, sorry, my timer went off, but I'll just answer a couple more. It's something everybody around me knew. So back when, because I'm 40, we didn't really have the language for it. So people found different and interesting ways to refer to my expression of gender my whole life. You know, I was called a drag queen, but a girl. That was a big one that hit. Like, I was very obviously performing femininity, and it wasn't like authentic seeming, and people didn't, everybody knew, basically. So yeah, people had very interesting experiences with that. Okay, I'm scrolling to meet you all in the future. Now I'm here. Now I am here. All right. Hi, everyone. There was a question I'd asked you. I don't remember what it was. Oh, my voice. My voice. Yeah, this should not be my real voice. Okay, good. Welcome back. Q&A done. We did it. I'm happy for us. Woo woo. Yes, I have dated. Actually, the first person I ever dated was a girl. Yeah. And yeah, there was actually a funny story that I've told before about my family deciding. So my mom's bisexual, and my family's very normal about gay people. And so normal, in fact, though, that my cousin thought maybe they were persecuting me by not recognizing my identity as a proud lesbian. And they were like, no, you forced Madeline to pretend to be bisexual. Madeline is actually a lesbian. We have to have an it's okay, like you're a lesbian, like party for Madeline, basically. So they tried to do this for me. It wasn't like a big party. It was just like, my mom lived with my aunt, my cousin, and me. And we all lived together for a little bit. So yeah, they did that. And then I had to be like, oh, I actually am bisexual. And it was very funny, but very nice. Yeah. Do we think, okay, Emily's asking, do we think reading Hegel and Kant can help us understand Marx better? I think Hegel probably, yeah, can help you understand dialectics better, but I don't think it's immediately important. Hi. Hello. I could do the entire thing in a California accent today. I don't know how much you guys would like that, though. And you'll see people will get really, really mad. They'll get, like, so mad in the comments. But we can do it. It's easier for me. Okay, video for the poll. All right. Okay. So getting into what we're going to talk about today, it's just more rounded. People say it sounds kind of Midwestern sometimes. Okay, but whatever. Yeah, it's going to rage bait people for sure. Today we're going to talk about Theory Thursday. We're going to do a Valley Girl Theory Thursday. We're going to let my Valley Girl freak flag fly. I have my recommendation today for Theory Thursday that we didn't get around to yesterday, or last week rather, but I thought it was a good one. So let me pull it up. 1 second. Fuck, where did it go? Maybe I didn't, I don't think I saved it. I think actually we do just have to find it again. And it was the rec that somebody made on, it was Engels. It was religion on socialism, right? Yes. Fuck. Where the fuck was it? I can't find it. Engels, religion, socialism and religion. La. I'm looking for the text. I can't find it on Marxist.org. I don't know why. I had this problem last time too. There, it was Lenin, that's why. Not Engels. Fucked up. Totally, for sure. Okay. If you listen to my book on tape, if you listen to my audiobook, you also probably heard like the voice I did to read the book. That was very, very, very practiced. Very practiced. Gagged me with a spoon. Like, oh my God. Yeah. Okay. Book on tape. I'm 40. Book on tape. Okay. I know. I'm sorry, Malrish. I'm sorry. I've betrayed our people. We're trying to play it so cool. We used to literally listen to books on tape. They'd come in these cases, and there'd be multiple tapes for every book. It was crazy. Okay, hold on. Let me do the countdown for everybody. Here's my rack. My rack is the one somebody recommended last week, which is Lenin, Socialism, and Religion, which I think is going to be interesting. So, who has Rex? I'm going to count it down, all right? Get your Rex ready. Everybody get ready. We're going to do a countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and go. Theory only. Theory only today. What are our theory Rex? Okay, great. Recommend the section called How Social Democracy Assists Fascism and Power. Cool. Love it. And if you have a big text, please do recommend a section of it. Oh, here, it's already, they got a little thing for it. Okay, great. 1 second. Western Marxism. Okay. Okay, Proletarian Revolution and the Renegade on Kautsky. Okay. We got some Kautsky rec. Interesting. We don't have the armed forces on the list, but I'm going to take yours as a rack. 1, 2, 3, 4. We've done Principles of Communism before, so you can find that one. I actually was reading from the armed forces one the other day because I don't know. I think it's really relevant. Because this is something that I personally struggle with this a lot, like trying to conceptualize and find a place for the armed forces revolution. Hosha from Totally Real Hoshoist. Socialism is bought by the masses. The party makes a bunch. We already have 5, unfortunately, but I like your whole bit that's going on. Okay. So we've got some options here going on. We've got enough. I think it's interesting. Okay, Neural Right says Stalin being easy to read, he makes Marxism-Leninism easy to get. That's definitely part of the reason he's so demonized in the West. I agree with that. I think that's actually accurate. He is very practical. Like, the whole thing about MAGA communism as a concept is that a lot of Stalin would appeal to these people, even his more reactionary bits, unfortunately. But I think that that is actually something that terrifies the United States, and the reason why the United States sought to demonize communism so much is that, like, Stalin in particular, Stalin himself, there is something about him that I think your average right-wing dude in the United States would fuck with Stalin and relate to Stalin. And I think even, like, when we talk about the ACP and how they, like, went off course, I think it's because they understood that, but then they leaned too hard into the chauvinism, as though the chauvinism would be the most relevant elements to them today. And I don't think the chauvinism is. I think the simplicity of the language, the common sense approach, the very, like, normal understanding of militarization and the need for that and the capacity for that, I think all of that is stuff that your average conservative man in the United States, they'd be like, wait a minute, this actually does make sense. Like, so I do think that is part of the demonization, specifically because it could appeal to the right wing en masse, right? Yeah. I think it's interesting. Okay, so we have some recs. Hold on, let me assess these recommendations really fast. I feel like for the Lacerdo text, we should read directly Lacerdo if we want to do this, like, rather than like because this is like a critique of it. Is that correct? I'm looking at the text, the Lacerdo rec. And I think it's probably better to just read the actual primary source text. It's gonna be my rec. It's gonna be my rec. There's some anti-communism texts that I think is going to be interesting from him specifically. It's more of a synthesis. Okay, I'm going to try to find just like some direct. If you have a rec that's like a direct Lacerdo, I think that might be better for us to start before we start reading, like, I don't know, I just feel like we should always go to the original text whenever possible. So I feel like there's Western Marxism is probably going to be too long. I'm going to look on Marxist.org if they have anything that's not super long. Yes. Sorry. I'm preparing the options for us chats. 1, 2, 3, 4. The Kautsky stuff's funny because the left comms are obsessed with calling everybody Kautsky too, if you guys noticed that. It's really funny. We're all Kautsky and LaSalle to them. They don't know anything other than call Kautsky and LaSalle. There's nothing on here. I feel like we might have to do a different rec. I just feel like the primary texts are going to be way too long for Lacerdo. They call campus Kautskis. Yeah, it's so funny. Very interesting. Okay, hold on. I'm going to get one more rec because I don't think the Lacerdo text is going to work for us today, unfortunately. I'm so sorry. Hold on. Let me look. Oh, yeah, Hoja. The Hojaist. I would do Hoja, actually. I'm not opposed to reading Hoja with everybody. I'm not opposed to that. We gotta find it, though. Give me a link. Hey, Hoja fan, give me a link. Give me a link to your Hoja text. First chapter. You know what? I'm taking the Graham Anita. I think that's the one I'm going to take because that was an easy link for me. How to do Bodega. Oh, yeah. Are you the person who keeps telling me to read Bodega? Are you the one who's always like, read Bodega, read Bodega? Grocery note. Well, we got another one. I'm like not opposed to reading left-com shit. I think it's interesting. I like to understand things. We read Trotsky on here sometimes, you know? I think it's really interesting to read and understand all sides, and we discuss critically. Okay, so this recommendation is George Thompson, A Study in Revolutionary Dialectics from Marx to Mao Zedong. I actually don't know about George Thompson. Who is this person? Marxist philosopher from London. He's a British. Okay. Okay, he's a British communist. Okay, interesting. Thompson was the greatest Hellenist. Okay, so he's like Hellenic. Okay. Pioneered a Marxist interpretation of Greek drama. Interesting. All right, cool. Okay. He's British. We got a Brit. Okay, we've got it. So here are going to be the recommendations we have for today. Virgo, are you ready to do a poll? I'm ready for a poll. Are you ready for a poll? Yes. Okay, so we have Lenin, Socialism and Religion. And again, I'm not trying to encourage how the chat is going to go, but this would be my vote. Somebody recommended it last week and I was sad it didn't win, so I think we should do this one. The next is How Social Democracy Assists Fascism to Power. And this is Dut. I've never read this text before, full disclosure, so this will be a first time for me, so that'll be nice. Then we have Lenin, The Proletarian Revolution and the Renegade Kautsky. We gotta pick a chapter, but that's okay. We can do Lenin on Kautsky. We could do Lenin, the Armed Forces, and the Revolution. So, okay, I didn't finish my thought here. But basically, I was doing some stuff for the Megan campaign because there are a number of veterans who are endorsing her campaign because she's an anti-war candidate for California State Controller. For those of you who don't know, she's a Marxist-Leninist running for California State Controller, and I volunteer on her campaign. And, you know, it's interesting trying to position the role of the armed forces in the revolution. And Lenin obviously wrote about this a lot because pretty famously in the USSR, their revolution was pulled off and made successful because they got the armed forces on their side. And it's interesting because, like, we know to position them not as a force of good, but our goal is to convert them and bring them to our side. And then the question is, how accountable do you hold them for being the foot soldiers of empire and violence and destruction around the globe if they've already themselves recognized that was bad and now they've come to your side? I think it's always an interesting position for us to be in. So I've been reading this a lot lately and it's been really good. Okay, and then we have Thompson from Marx to Mao, and this chapter 1 is the recommendation. Thank you for summarizing a recommendation on this. It's the dictatorship of the proletariat. Okay, so those are our Thursday options. Yeah, the text looks really interesting to me as well. I haven't read this, but this looks relevant to us. I think it's good. Okay, we've got a submission for the voting videos. We've got Carr coming in first. We're going to do them in order. Carr is a British. Do we get to learn more?
The Wikipedia page of 6-time NBA champion Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is proof that white people don't see us as human. See, Abdul-Jabbar is one of many famous black people that have changed their name from a slave name to a chosen name. And something you'll notice if you check out the Wikipedia pages of Abdul-Jabbar, Kwame Ture, Muhammad Ali, or really any famous black person that's changed their name, is that the Wikipedia page will use the slave name to describe any periods of their life before they change their name. By the way, they only do this for black people, at least as far as I can tell. They don't dead name or misgender trans people when talking about their lives pre-transition, and they don't use married people's maiden names, with, as far as I can tell, the only exception being the first ladies. So why are black people treated any different? Well, to understand, we need to look to Afro-Martinican philosopher Frantz Fanon and his book Black Skin, White Masks. In it, he writes that black people in colonial society develop a body schema that is informed by the knowledge of how they're racialized in society. That to be black isn't necessarily to be anything, but rather to not be white. He frames blackness as something that only exists in direct opposition to whiteness. In his words, for not only must the black man be black, he must be black in relation to the white man. Because of this, Fanon argues that many black people under this white gaze seek to increase their proximity to whiteness in order to improve their self-worth. And in Chapter 1, Fanon discusses how the mastery of the white man's language is one of the most easily accessible tools that the black man has for whitening themselves, that is, to become more human via their proximity to whiteness. The Negro's humanity and their mastery of the white man's language have a positive correlation, as to master the white man's language is to gain access to the white man's world. This is precisely why black people aren't respected when they change their names from a slave name to a chosen name. To disregard one's slave name is to rebuke the notion that whiteness is the only path to humanity, and to escape the white gaze that black people are so used to operating under. Leaving behind one's European slave name frames blackness as something that exists outside of its relation to whiteness. And so, the refusal to use these new names comes from a desire to keep black people in these boxes, and to keep them forever operating under the white gaze. To use their chosen names is to concede to black people the agency and humanity that whiteness needs to retain a monopoly on in order to preserve its power. The Wikipedia page of six-time...
Okay, I like this guy. I think he has really good analysis. He's not a communist, right? He's not like a comrade. We don't think he's like a communist. He pronouns also? They, them pronouns? I don't know this pronoun preference. Hold on. I can't see it!
The Wikipedia page of six-time...
But the thing I think is really interesting about this is the parallel to how we talk about transgender people, trans people, when they choose a proper name for themselves, right? And they're like, this is who I am now. That's correct. We don't use their old name anywhere. Like Elliot Page was a great example. That's Elliot Page. That's always been Elliot Page. But we do that when black people choose a different name for themselves. It's definitely interesting. Yeah. I think that's a very, very good and important analysis, TBH. I loved that. Okay, are you guys voting? Has everybody voted? If you can't see the poll at the top of your chat, please just refresh. We have a few minutes left on the poll. Looks like socialism and religion is winning, but social democracy and fascism is a close second. Renegade Kautsky, an L. It is funny though and interesting. These were all good recs, actually, everybody. You did great recs. Yeah. Poll video. Okay, we got another one from Ghost in This Hell. Sorry, I'm just kind of jumping around with the poll videos.
Counting or not counting gang violence. Counting or not counting gang violence. Counting or not counting gang violence.
Wow. Imagine Yeonmi Park sitting here. Imagine Yeonmi Park sitting here with her Turning Point USA friends. The gunshots, I know, is wild. Yeah, imagine her just sitting there. You know they were conflicted. You know they were conflicted. Wild. Wild. I still can't believe that happened. That was crazy. Typical Kautsky L. Special draft from the poll. 0 votes for Kautsky. A few people voted for Kautsky. Okay. Socialism and religion won. Yay. We love to see it. No, I've not seen the dude beatboxing with his dog, but I've been getting a lot of cursed AI ads. Okay, so before we get into the religion text, I've been getting a lot of cursed AI ads because every time they pop up on my feed, I stare at them in horror and disbelief. Like, I cannot look away from these things. So more of them just keep coming. So there's this one cursed ad I keep getting over and over again for an AI boyfriend. It's absolutely fucking wild. So one of the cursed AI ads that I keep seeing on television is for like a dog that's like beatboxing but with the buttons, and it's actually like a pharmaceutical ad, which if you're not from the United States or comrades not from the USA, like 90% of our television ads are just pharmaceutical companies. Like, it's literally just pharmaceutical companies. Like, they will be selling you these stupid fucking medications, and part of American culture is at the end of every ad there's a massive list of all of the side effects that come with it. Yeah, pharma and insurance, exactly. And the side effects are all like, you will shit your brains out and fucking die, haha. So they're absolutely deranged commercials. And there is one that is like an, maybe it's not AI, maybe it's just bad CG, but it looks very AI coded, of a dog, and like its owner is maybe like a DJ, and then the dog is using those buttons that help the dogs talk, and the dog's like maybe rapping or like beatboxing along with the owner, but it's like bad like AI looking graphics of the dog hitting these buttons, and it's to sell you medicine. I have no clue what the fucking medicine is for at all, but yeah, that's what's happening. Incredible things are happening in the collapse of the metropole, for anybody who hasn't seen it. And there was a real dog that shot a gun. Did you guys see that? The AI of the dogs shooting guns. There's a real one that just shot somebody. Right? You guys didn't see this? Okay, I'm so happy to share this with you all. Dog shoots woman with shotgun at Nebraska convenience store. That's a gas station. That's a fucking gas station, first of all. Yeah. This happened here. Police responding to reports of a shotgun blast at a convenience store sounds like the opening of countless American crime movies, but when cops in Nebraska responded to a recent such call, they found an unusual culprit, a dog. Local TV station KNOP News 2 reported that the police in the town of Scottsbluff were called out to a local store recently after reports of a blast involving a shotgun. Upon arrival, they found a truck with blast damage and one of its doors, and a woman who had been struck in the arm by a pellet from a shotgun. Is a gas station store not a convenience store? Fuck, I guess maybe they are. I guess I always thought of a convenience store as being more like a corner store but bigger, but I guess a gas station is a convenience store. Huh. Okay, that's my bad. That's my bad. Depends on how big. I guess you're right. Yeah, no, this was Nebraska, so close like to Florida. I've never been to Nebraska. It's one of the 3 US states I have not traveled to, so this is just really making me want to go to Nebraska even more hardcore. Somehow, the dog had triggered the shotgun, which had a live round chambered to fire, damaging the vehicle and striking a female passerby. Investigation showed a canine cause behind the shooting. That is so crazy. But yeah, so somebody made a very funny TikTok about it, and they were like, I'm in Nebraska. I'll let you know if there's a full-on dog uprising of some kind. I know, I'm also curious about, like, what kind of dog? What is the situation? How does this occur? Oh no. There's a Maorish dog beatboxing thing before we get into our theory. Alex Antics says that dog is gonna bite his face and he's gonna deserve it. He is. So true. Somebody else is like, what kind of dog? Betting on a Chihuahua. That's definitely a Chihuahua move. A Chihuahua, I mean, or a Dachshund. I could see a Dachshund shooting its owner. They get real mad at us. They're really attached to us, but like it's a psychotic, deranged love that's like, I'm gonna kill us both in the end kind of energy. So like I can see Fork killing me. Like my ex actually said that Fork and I had a toxic relationship. Yeah, and then my current partner was like, you know, she's like this because of you, right? Very interesting. Am I anti-proletarian today? What am I doing to you, my masses? What am I doing? Oh, just because I think maybe it's funny if your dog shoots you. Now I'm anti-worker. Now I'm anti-worker. Fine. Okay. I guess I'm not welcome anywhere. I guess I'm not welcome. I see how it is. That dog is a worker too, damn it. Maybe he is. Okay, all right. Your dachshund was a psychopath. Yeah, mine's like actually, she's like insane. She has to be medicated daily. She has to take a daily anti-anxiety medication. And she's still an insane creature. Like she's out of her mind. I have to warn people. I have to be like, she's crazy though. You know that, right? Yeah. Watch this, you're anti-proletarian. No, we have to get into Theory Thursday, Bigotco. We have to. I need to figure out the wooker. I'm not that good at makeup, so I have to figure that out. Okay, let's get into it. Let's get into Socialism and Religion by our boy Lenin. I'm really excited about this personally. I'm really excited about this. I've been wanting to read this for a while. And I think this is a question a lot of people have when they want to talk about communism. So coming hot off of the video we watched, that got down to the bottom of why that old lady was getting on the internet saying that Stalin murdered like 60 million Christians or something. Whatever that was. The dog was liberating itself from abuse, whatever. I agree. And then we look into this, like, there's just this general part of anti-communist propaganda is this idea that communism is very anti-religion. And this is a common theme we see repeated, right? Stalin killing 60 million people, whatever the fuck that is. But also, like, China persecuting the Uyghur Muslims, right? Oh, it's because they're Muslim. It's for their religion. Or when we talk about Shenyang and Falun Gong, they say that they were persecuted for being a religious group in China. We know that they were persecuted for being a fucking cult that led to, like, over 1,000 people dying. But whatever the case. You know, this is just something we hear a lot. We hear these, like, myths and ideas that something about communism is fundamentally incompatible with religion. And we've seen Marx talk about religion. We've seen Engels talk about religion. And their general assessment was that probably as communism develops, society would see less and less of a need for religion because we understand that religion fulfills specific like spiritual, emotional needs, community needs for people. We also see a lot of the ways that religions continue to recruit people is by doing basically church-based mutual aid. So a lot of people see all of this and they think that communism must be at its core then anti-religion. And this is a question I get asked a lot. And my takes on religion as an atheist and a communist, how I feel about religion. And I think that people really expect me to say that I hate all religious people and they should die and religion should not be allowed anywhere. But what we actually see when we talk about the history of religion and communism, before we get into this, is that we see communists have a very rational approach to religion, right? It's very rational. So when the Chinese communists won the Civil War and they showed up in Tibet, and they were like, what's going on in Tibet? And they get there and they see a theocracy. They see a shit show. They see the Dalai Lama system there that people are very, very attached to. But at the same time, the Dalai Lama system is exploiting them, is harming them. The religious leadership in Tibet is quite literally, the bourgeoisie of Tibet. So when the communists show up there, they're like, how are we going to resolve this issue? What are we going to do? They know they cannot take religion away from the people. It's not practical. It's not rational. The people will rise up against that because people love their religion. So nowhere does any communist think that it is rational to try to forcefully take religion from people. All you're going to do is make enemies out of the same working class that you were seeking to liberate. So what happens instead is they allow them to keep their religion in Tibet, but they put some limitations on things that's like, hey, you can't fucking enslave people. You can't sexually abuse children. You can't mutilate people. Like, that's not okay. So they allow their religion to stay, but they remove the oppressive elements of it. And this is ultimately what we saw happen throughout other parts of China when they were like, you're allowed to have your religion, but you're not allowed to proselytize your religion in public. The people who do the Shenyang dance troupe thing, Falun Gong, the religious group, they were allowed to operate as a cultural group, right, out of China for many, many years. And it wasn't until they started telling people if they Falun Gonged hard enough, they didn't need to take medication and like the god of Falun Gong would save them. And 1,000 people died that China was like, okay, this is fucked up. You can't do this anymore. You're harming people. So the general actual communist approach is that religion, like many things, can be used as an exploitative tool of the ruling class to exploit and harm individual people. And that harm is the problem. But religion itself isn't necessarily the biggest enemy of anybody. It's not the greatest intrinsic enemy of communism. There are many people who are religious and are also communist. There are many Muslim people in particular for whom communism is very compatible with their religion. When we look at what's actually going on in the Xinjiang region of China, we see that they actually have more mosques per capita for a Muslim person there than the United States does. And it's not actually that you're not allowed to be Muslim in Xinjiang. It's just that anywhere in China, you're not allowed to push your religion on other people. It has to be a deeply personal, spiritual practice. So I think this kind of stuff is important to remember. We also have to remember that, religion does recruit based on deficiencies in a capitalist system. So I have a friend who unfortunately became disabled due to a catastrophic event that occurred when she was in college. They pronounced they were in college. And one of the things when they were talking to their family and they were like, how do I navigate this? What do I do? Their family was like, you should join a church because the church will help you through this. The church will help you get all the stuff you need for your disability. And I thought about that a lot because my grandmother also became disabled later in life. I had to be in a wheelchair. Both my friend's in a wheelchair and my grandmother's in a wheelchair before my grandmother died. And that was the same thing. Every single amount of assistance and help my grandmother got for her disability, from getting an affordable apartment that she could live on with her Social Security, from getting medical assistance because she didn't have access to great medical care, all of that assistance came through her church. church. So when, Marx and Engels talk about the idea that religion serves a specific purpose under capitalism, and as we move away from capitalism, that purpose will have less and less power and strength in society. These are the kinds of things we're talking about. We're not saying we think religion is evil or we want to take away religion from people forcefully. Like, no, we just are acknowledging the very material reality of the function of religion and in society today. Jamie says, I keep seeing people talk about how Americans were imprisoned by the DPRK for bringing them Bibles. Yeah, but it's like they have Bibles in the DPRK. They have Christian churches in the DPRK. So yeah, that is not something that's real, right? Weeb Core says, reminds me of the girl who went door to door to churches calling, asking for baby formula, and all of the Christian churches snubbed her because she wasn't a member. Exactly. Yeah. They're using it as a recruiting tool. They're like, we'll help you if you're a member of our church. And then it was actually, wasn't it the mosques that were like, we will help you. We will give you everything you need. Like, no questions asked. But the Christian churches do not. This, I think, is important context for us. This is why it's important for us as communists to have conversations about religion. People love their religion. People don't want to have their religion taken away from them. And we as communists don't want to take their religion away. But we also do acknowledge the specific utility of religion in capitalism. And we are able to extrapolate and see that religion might manifest differently in socialism, right? Oh, the black churches said they would help in the mosques. That's right. A Strawberry BB 13, first time chat. My school counselor said that if you walked into China with a Bible, you'd be sent to the gulag. Yeah, many churches all throughout China. Very, very interesting though. We hear this a lot. So this is why it's important as communists to understand these talking points and know how to dispel them and be able to say, like, no, that's not our approach on religion. So with that in mind, let's get into actually reading the text. We are going to be reading Lenin, Socialism, and Religion. Now, what's important is this was first published in 1905, so 12 years before the Russian Revolution, right? Okay. Present-day society is wholly based on the exploitation of the vast masses of the working class by a tiny minority of the population, the class of the landowners and that of the capitalists. It is a slave society, since the free workers, who all their life work for the capitalists, are entitled only to such means of subsistence as are essential for the maintenance of slaves who produce profit, for the safeguarding and perpetuation of capitalist slavery. So I think that this is really important for us to talk about too. Very obviously, we know that present-day capitalism is not akin to like chattel slavery that Black Americans face. As an American, that's where we go when we think about slavery. We think about obviously our very unique and horrific experience with slavery in the Americas, right? So when we talk about slave society from a Marxist perspective, we're not likening it to that. We very obviously know that the average American worker is not being like held captive and having their skin cut off of them as punishment for, not working fast enough in 20 hours in the blistering sun. We understand these are different conditions, right? However, when we talk about slavery from a Marxist perspective, we're talking about it in more of the classical sense, which is that you are enslaved to a system, you are enslaved to the capitalist owning class. It is not intended in any way to mirror or minimize the unique cruelty of chattel slavery in the Americas. And if you're not from the Americas, you're probably like, yeah, duh. But here in the Americas, that is something really important to us because that is such an overwhelming, pervasive part of our experience here. So I have to say that. The invocation of the word slavery can be racist if it's not properly understood and contextualized, Malrich says, and yes, that is correct. So when we say that, as somebody from the Americas, we definitely have to contextualize it, and again, not conflate this with the absolutely unhinged fucking barbaric cruelty that Black Americans went through, which is just like we learn new horrors about chattel slavery every single day that are unearthed, and it's absolutely fucked. So I just want to say that. So when we talk about this, what we are saying basically is that you are not actually a free worker under capitalism, right? You're not. You don't have freedom under capitalism to choose if you work or where you work or whatever. If you do not have a job under capitalism, you will die. You will die. You are stuck, you are tethered, you are tied to the system is the way that this is to be understood. And the only amount of subsistence you're going to get, the only quality of life you're going to get is the bare minimum that the capitalist owning class thinks they can give you without you basically becoming so weak you can no longer work for them. And this is similar in some ways to how chattel slavery was approached. Because human beings were so dehumanized under chattel slavery, you can actually see slave owners, plantation owners in the Americas doing math calculations to be like, well, it's cheaper just to let them die and then replace them by another replacement slave at a slave market. They were literally tallying them up and figuring out the return on investment for feeding these people and keeping them alive as though they were a tractor that you could just do planned obsolescence with or whatever. It's going to break down and we'll just get a new one. So these were the types of calculations going on in chattel slavery as well. They are going on to a lesser degree in more traditional capitalism. So just putting that out there. The economic oppression of the workers inevitably calls forth and engenders every kind of political oppression and social humiliation, the coarsening and darkening of the spiritual and moral life of masses. So basically, what Lenin's saying is that because of this, this is bleak. This is a fucking bleak situation. If you're living in tenement housing and you're working in a fucking factory and it's the late 1800s or whatever, the turn of the century, and, children are working next to you. They're starting work at like 8, 9 years old. People are losing their hands and limbs in these giant machines. They're getting utterly fucking mangled. You don't have a 40-hour work week yet. You've got, a 100-hour work week. It's brutal. You are being politically oppressed by your boss. You are suffering social humiliation. Yes. And this is what is leading to a darkening of the spiritual and moral life that you experience. You are not in a fucking good headspace, man. You are getting fucked with. The workers may secure a greater or lesser degree of political liberty then to fight for the economic emancipation, but no amount of liberty will rid them of poverty, unemployment, and oppression until the power of capital is overthrown. So you can fight for, some better quality. Like, look, our workers' rights have come a long way since then. Labor unions, socialists, right, leftists fought for things like the 40-hour work week, the guaranteed weekend, certain labor protections, higher minimum child age, although China's minimum child age for work is still higher than ours. But, these are wins, right? These are wins. But they're not, no matter what way you look at it, they're not actually giving you liberty. You're not actually going to be able to experience liberation under capitalism. You're not going to be free until you rid yourself of the system, basically, is what Lenin says. So then he goes on and says, religion is one of the forms of spiritual oppression, which everywhere weighs down heavily upon the masses of the people, overburdened by their perpetual work for others, by want and isolation. Impotence of the exploited class and their struggles against the exploiters just as inevitably gives rise to a belief in a better life after death, as impotence of the savage in his battle with nature gives rise to belief in God's, devils, miracles, and the like. Okay, and again, savage, that's not a word we would use today. That's, right. And what they're actually talking about, though, is people before technology, right, who were battling the elements just to be able to live on the land, how that was a very difficult and bleak process, and it led to them understanding the world in terms of these natural forces they could not compete with and control, right? So if you think about early man, you don't have any food to eat. Why? Well, because there was a massive rain and then a massive flood. These natural disasters occurred that you have no control over, and now you don't have any food to eat. So you're battling nature, right? Because you don't really have a strong conception of what you're battling. You are deciding that the gods are angry at you. The gods are angry at you, and that's why they flooded this. The devil has come through in the weather. So this is what Lenin's saying. Like, early man developed this way of understanding the world in our battle against nature by assigning it these mystical qualities. God, the devil, miracles are happening, right? And similarly, today's man, who is suffering and toiling under the confines of capitalism, is using different ways to experience and contextualize their struggle, right, through a mystical lens. And so this idea that if you actually don't feel like you can give yourself a better quality of life now, you have to have a reason to keep going. Your brain will go, well, maybe there's something better after this. Maybe there's something better after this. Maybe there's going to be a better life after I die. And that's a reason to keep going. That's self-preservation mode. That's a way of understanding the world. That's a way of contextualizing the suffering that you're going through in that current moment, right? So this is what Lenin is talking about. That's a reason why lots of religion gets developed. And we actually see historically, going back to medieval ages, Christianity in particular, that was used sometimes consciously as a tool of oppression by monasteries, by land-owning religious classes to basically intellectually and psychologically enslave the people there to their whims as well. They were like, well, you do all this, you toil now, sometimes literally on our land for our profit, right? Because God's going to reward you in the end. God's going to love it in the end. It's going to be so much better for you in the end. And then they would even do things like they would sell, trinkets that you could buy that were supposed to help buy you access into heaven. That is a thing the Christian church used to do, right? So we actually see that this becomes a way of rationalizing the suffering that you're going through in your current day. You can make it through another day at your shit-ass horrible factory job where everybody treats you like garbage and you're struggling to pay rent and nobody can afford any food to eat if you believe that God has a plan and there's a reason for this. And at the end of it, you're going to end up in a magical, beautiful kingdom where it was all worthwhile, right? If you just play your cards right and keep at it. Don't kill yourself, because then you won't get there. You can't jump ahead. You got to make it through all this first and then you'll get there. So, this doesn't mean, obviously, that we think these are the only reasons that religion appeals to people. Religion appeals to people for all sorts of reasons. There's so many cultural reasons that people are spiritual or religious. There's so much connection to your history and your family, right, and your roots that draws people to their religion and their spirituality. None of this is to say that that's not real or valid. However, religion as an institution does benefit greatly as a formalized institution from luring people in with this idea of a mythical better life that will happen if you just endure your suffering now, right? So I think that's important to note. This has less to do with people's individual spirituality and more to do with the institutionalization of religion and what role it plays in capitalism. Malrish, can we bring back indulgences? Yeah, they're called indulgences, the little trinkets you would buy to buy your way into heaven. You'd purchase an indulgence. It's a great word, yeah, it is. Okay, I'm gonna drink a little water, hold on, and we'll keep going. Okay, so those who toil and live in want all their lives are taught by religion to be submissive and patient while here on earth, and to take comfort in the hope of a heavenly reward, right? So if you just be good now, I know you're mad at your boss, don't do anything crazy, don't kill him, overthrow him, that would be bad. The Bible would hate that. You just be submissive and wait until you die, and then you're gonna get everything you want after you die in a beautiful, magical place that exists. But those who live by the labor of others are taught by religion to practice charity while on earth, thus offering them a cheap way of justifying their entire existence as exploiters and selling them at moderate price tickets to well-being in heaven. So if you're a poor person, what utility does religion as an institution serve in your life, right? Right, we just talked about that. It tells you that keep your head down, do your work, don't make waves, don't get too mad, don't get too crazy, right? And things will be better for you later, we promise. It'll all be worth it in the end. When you die, it's going to be awesome. So don't get too mad about your conditions here on earth now. But if you're rich, that's not the experience you're having with religion, is it? No. If you're religious and you're rich, they're telling you, well, if you do charity work, if you do that, you're actually a good person and you'll get into heaven that way. That's how you'll get into heaven, right? Because what's the quote from Jesus? It's like, it's easier for a camel to fit through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to get into heaven. So if you're a rich man, you better start giving the church a lot of your money. Ooh, if you want to get into heaven, right? You better give the church all your money. If you want to get into heaven, give it to us. So the function of the church, of religion in this way, is twofold. It's telling the poor to be obedient workers to capitalism, and it's telling the rich under capitalism to give all your money to the church, which I think is really, really interesting. You give all your money to God. So religion, they say, therefore, is opium for the people. Religion is a sort of spiritual booze in which the slaves of capital drown their human image, their demand for a life more or less worthy of a man. But a slave who has become conscious of his slavery and has risen to the struggle for his emancipation has already half ceased to be a slave. Like, your class consciousness, your consciousness, your awareness of your conditions, that's half the battle, right? You intellectually are realizing, like, hey, wait a minute, I deserve something better than this. This is not okay. This is not how life's supposed to be. I deserve more now, and not just magically after I die. So Lenin says the modern class-conscious worker, reared by large-scale factory industry and enlightened by urban life, contemptuously casts aside religious prejudices, leaves heaven to the priests and bourgeois bigots, and tries to win a better life for himself here on earth. You're going to be more interested, not in a hypothetical better world that could await you after you die. You're going to have the consciousness to say, I deserve a better life now. You might still be religious or spiritual. I have a connection to religious spirituality. But that it just means that you're not looking for emancipation or liberation after death. You want the emancipation and liberation that you can win now while here on earth, right? So these religious prejudices that say, well, this is what you're supposed to do. It's very like humble and modest and dignified and noble to be a poor person just working, which is what the Christian Bible teaches us, right? They're like, well, no, fuck that. Fuck that. The priests can talk about that. The rich guys can talk about that all they want. I want to fight for a better world for myself now here on earth because I do deserve that, right? The proletariat of today takes the side of socialism, which enlists science in the battle against the fog of religion, and frees the worker from their belief in life after death by wielding them together to fight in the present for a better life on earth. Now, I think another thing that's also worth pointing out at this time is when we talk about religion, a lot of the religion we're talking about is specifically Christianity. It is specifically Christianity. A lot of things we're talking about is the role of the Christian church. Obviously, we know that indigenous cultures have different relationships with spirituality that aren't so institutionalized in this way, that don't play such an active role in the bourgeoisie and their power structure. This is also, I think, just worth noting. And when we get into the limitations of how we're talking about religion, these are relatively Western texts. These are Western ideas. I know we try to say Russia is Eastern or whatever the heck. Weird designation we're using for the map that's just basically Americentric and strange. But whatever terminology we're using, we are talking mostly about Christianity and the Christian church. And that is not the way religion manifests for everyone. So that's also a point to bring up. Like in Russia, they had a massive Christianity, influx of Christianity. In Europe, obviously, where Marx was, where Engels was, Christianity was the dominant religion at the time. So I think that that's important to note as well, right? So the fog of religion, the kind of corruption of spirituality into an institution that harms people, that's all taken into account here. And that doesn't mean that it's the institutionalization of religion that's the problem necessarily. No, because some religions are formal institutions and they do less of this. Some personal spirituality that's not super institutionalized can be just as harmful. Look at Falun Gong. That wasn't a super institutionalized structure. That was a relatively new thing that was picking up steam as like a cult-like entity in China, but it was still doing just as much bad. So that's not necessarily the precursor, but I think it is important to understand the lens through which they are writing. It is mostly about the Christian church. Religion must be declared a private affair. And this is really the crux of what we think, right? As communists, we don't think you should abolish religion. We think religion must be declared a private affair. In these words, socialists usually express their attitude toward religion, but the meaning of these words should be accurately defined to prevent any misunderstanding. We demand that religion be held a private affair so far as the state is concerned. But by no means can we consider religion a private affair so far as our party is concerned. Religion must be of no concern to the state, and religious societies must have no connection with government authority. Everyone must be absolutely free to profess any religion he pleases, or no religion whatever, i.e. to be an atheist, which every socialist is as a rule. Okay, is every socialist an atheist as a rule? Probably not, right? Most of us are, but a lot of us aren't. So, I think that this is a little more dogmatic than most Marxist-Leninists, especially today, try to be with our approach to religion. But also look at the recognition that Lenin has here in the sentence. Even if you're not an atheist, we still believe you should be absolutely free to profess any religion you want. Any religion you want, right? So, discrimination among citizens on account of their religious convictions is wholly intolerable. Even the bare mention of a citizen's religion in official documents should unquestionably be eliminated. No subsidies should be granted to the established church, nor state allowances made to ecclesiastical and religious societies. These should become absolutely free associations of like-minded citizens, associations independent of the state. Only the complete fulfillment of these demands can put an end to the shameful and accursed past when the church lived in feudal dependence on the state, and Russian citizens lived in feudal dependence on the established church, when medieval inquisitorial law, to this day, remaining in our criminal codes and our statute books, remember, this is from, 1905, I believe? 1905. So this is long before the Russian Revolution. They're still in Tsarist Russia. Were in existence and were applied, persecuting men for their belief or disbelief, violating men's consciences, and linking cozy government jobs and government-derived incomes with the dispensation of this or that dope by the established church. Complete separation of church and state is what the socialist proletariat demands of the modern state and the modern church. So again, we talked about how this was really coming through the lens of the Christian church. We see it manifest here with what he's just said, right? In Russia, the Christian church, just like as many places in Europe, was often acting as an arm of the bourgeoisie. They were landowners if they weren't capitalists. They were having people under feudalism before capitalism, literally toiling the land on behalf of the church so the church could acquire wealth, right, and power. The church is dispensing dope. You heard it here first, yeah. A lot of communists I know are Muslim. So when, Lenin is like, as a rule, socialists are atheists, no, not as a rule, not actually, not really. However, back in 1905 Russia, that might have needed to be more of a rule because you intrinsically needed to be anti-church, right? If you are, by definition, you're opposed to the bourgeoisie and the owning class, and the church is the owning class in Russia at that time, maybe by definition, to be a socialist in Russia in 1905, you would necessarily have to oppose the church. You would have to say no, because this is the bourgeoisie here. And that's an interesting parallel to what the Chinese communists encountered when they came to Tibet. And they were like, okay, you have a theocracy. Okay, shit. Your religion is your ruling class, is your bourgeoisie. How do we begin to separate these things so we don't take your religion from you, but we also don't allow your religion to use its power to, extort and manipulate from the masses the way it has been? Which I think is interesting. The church was being used as a tool to enforce the bourgeois class interests. The state they were trying to smash was intrinsically connected to the church. So this is from Lilith and Malrich, and this is exactly true. So when we see them say things like, well, every socialist, you can't be religious and be a socialist. Well, maybe that's a unique condition that Lenin is writing about in Russia at the time. Maybe that's a unique condition of the ties that the Christian church had with Europe at the time, with the European bourgeoisie at the time. Not every culture and every religion has that experience of being intrinsically linked to the bourgeoisie. So there has to be a little flexibility, especially when we're thinking more globally. You just do apply your best judgment, right? But at the bottom line, at the end of the day, is that every single person, everyone, must be absolutely free to profess any religion he pleases or no religion whatsoever. And the state should not have any say in people's religion. Yeah, the head of the Orthodox Church in Russia was Tsar Nicholas himself. Exactly. Yes, thank you. And there's a big difference between religion and the church. Yes, as Bernard Steyer is saying as well. Monarch and church were one. Yes. So the Russian Revolution must put this demand into effect as a necessary component of political freedom. In this respect, the Russian Revolution is in a particularly favorable position since the revolting officialism of the police-ridden feudal autocracy has called forth discontent, unrest, and indignation even among the clergy. However abject, however ignorant Russian Orthodox clergymen may have been, even they have now been awakened by the thunder of the downfall of the old medieval order in Russia. Even they are joining in the demand for freedom, are protesting against bureaucratic practices and officialism, against the spying for the police imposed on the servants of God. We socialists must lend this movement our support, carrying the demands of honest and sincere members of the clergy to their conclusion, making them stick to their words about freedom, demanding that they should resolutely break all ties between religion and the police. So what do we see here? Right here, Lenin says it. Carrying the demands of honest and sincere members of the clergy. He's saying right here, we don't demonize anybody for having religion, for practicing religion, even for being a member of the clergy. Some people are here honestly, sincerely, and it is our duty to radicalize them and bring them into our fold, to make them part of our revolution, to tell them, hey, we see you're a good person. You need to break the ties between the state and the church. Now, something that this makes me think about a lot is Operation Condor, a lot of the anti-communist practices going on throughout Latin America, South America in particular, that the United States backed or participated in. When we think about the types of people who were attacked and targeted for being communists and socialists in Latin America during the Cold War up through the 80s, right? A lot of them were clergy members. A lot of them were members of the church. A lot of them were religious. And we have examples of anti-communist mass extermination campaigns that targeted clergy members in particular because they were socialists, because they were communists. So we also know Christianity is not always incompatible with communism, because there were sincere and honest members of the clergy who were fighting for the liberation of the workers, right, from the oppressive powers. We know this because the United States documented our attempts to target them, attack them, and kill them. And people who went to School of the Americas, which was later renamed WINSEC, they were taught by the U.S. government specifically to target people who might have some influence in their local communities, and this included clergy members. So in particular, the United States, through School of the Americas and WINSEC, trained potential people, potential military dictators who might throw a coup and overthrow the governments where they were to institute a right-wing new government sympathetic to American capital, to American businessmen, we taught them to go seek out clergy members, members of religious groups in their communities who might be socialists and make an example out of them and kill them first and worst. And so School of the Americas Watch, which was actually set up to monitor what School of the Americas was up to in Latin America, that was something that was headed and created by a number of religious people, a number of members of Catholicism throughout Latin America, because so many of their religious leaders were specifically targeted in this way by American capital. So this is just an example of what Lenin is talking about here, to contextualize it to real world experiences that are more recent for our history. When Lenin says, we socialists must lend this movement our support, carry the demands of honest and sincere members of clergy to their conclusion, make them stick to their words about freedom, demand that they should resolutely break all ties between religion and the police. Many clergy members did that, especially during the Cold War, and capitalists slaughtered them for it. And they gave their lives. They gave their lives, not necessarily as religious martyrs, but as martyrs of the working class movement, as martyrs of socialism and communism. They were slaughtered in churches, in their churches, for standing up sometimes for the movement of the working class and the liberation of the masses, right? So again, these aren't necessarily incompatible. It's just about how we manage religion in a socialist lens. So either you are sincere, in which case you must stand for the complete separation of the church and state and of the school and the church, for religion to be declared wholly and absolutely a private affair, or you do not accept the consistent demands for freedom, in which case you evidently are still held captive by the traditions of the Inquisition, in which case you evidently still cling to your cozy government jobs, your government-derived incomes, in which case you evidently do not believe in the spiritual power of your weapon and continue to take bribes from the state. Now, this is something that's a little less relevant to us here in a contemporary lens in the United States, certainly where I live. But again, was very, very relevant to what was occurring in Europe at the time these texts were written, in Russia at the time these texts were written. As we talked about, the government and the church were very, very interlinked inextricably. And here in the United States, I would argue, even though technically our government and our churches disconnected, we see not really in practice. We see that there are a number of very influential churches in Washington, D.C. in particular, that help groom people for political positions within the community. A lot of these people who are in Congress, for example, went to the same churches, went to the same summer camps, went to the same religious retreats. So while it's not formal in the United States, there certainly is a lot of influence that is informally structured into our government as well. And that's why it is so commonplace for somebody to be Christian and be in our politics here in the USA. So rare for people to be atheists or have outside religious affiliations. And why it was even controversial for people to be Catholic and elected to leadership here. Because socially, there's a social club that developed around certain religious institutions and political power and proximity here, which I think is very, very fascinating as well. So, and in that case, class-conscious workers of Russia, of all Russia, declare merciless war on you. Like, if you are aligning yourself with the bourgeoisie, if you are aligning yourself with the state that oppresses and harms people, you are not a spiritual leader. You are not somebody to defend us, and we are not somebody to defend you. You are a political enemy. You've decided you align yourself with the capitalists, with the landowners, with the bourgeoisie, with our oppressors. And we are not going to respect you just because you're a member of the clergy. You are also our oppressor, right? But Lenin makes a distinction here. Not all members of the clergy are our oppressors. Some are on our side, and some are not, right? And that's the same distinction we'll see him make when talking about the armed forces as well, should we get into that text at a later date. So far as the party of the socialist proletariat is concerned, religion is not a private affair. Our party is an association of class-conscious, advanced fighters for the emancipation of the working class. Such an association cannot and must not be indifferent to the lack of class consciousness, ignorance, or obscurantism in the shape of religious beliefs. We demand complete disestablishment of the church so as to be able to combat the religious fog with purely ideological and solely ideological weapons by means of our press and by word of mouth. So what's Lenin saying here? Well, first things first, it's important to remember the party is not the government. Your largest political party, your vanguard party, that's not the government. Those are different. And that's why so many people are really confused about the DPRK. We can see Kim Jong-un is the head of the party there, the largest party, the Workers' Party, right? And in most communist places, the Worker Party is going to be the largest party. Why? Because most people have jobs. Most people are workers. That makes sense. But the party is not the government. And that's why if you read Susie Kim, The Everyday Life in the North Korean Revolution, 1945 to 1950, there is the very funny part I often reference where people who are new to communism and didn't really understand it, in one town, they elected a landlord to represent them, to be their delegate, to go up in government and represent them. And the party came to town and they're like, you elected this fucking landlord? And the people, they were like, yeah, we like him. He's great. We love him. And the party was like, okay. Like, because they didn't have the power to override the government. They only had the power to act almost, as I explain it, like a living constitution, the embodiment of the goals and values of the revolution, right? So all they could do was attempt to shape the understanding, the political understanding and education of the people there, and hope that with enough information, they wouldn't do something like that again. And that's what they did. They were like, this region, we need to do increased political education so they understand the nature of how oppression and exploitation under capitalism manifests, and what landlords as a class have to do with that, right? That was their solution. So when we talk about the party is different than the government. The party is different than the state. Even after you win a revolution, the party is not the same as the governing body of the state. Those are still two different things, which I think is important to really think about, right? So what Lenin is talking about here is he's saying, well, when we talk about the party, our vanguard party, here, religion isn't a private affair. And he's saying in our party here in Russia, we want you to not align yourself with the church in any way. Because we want you to be an atheist, to be a member of this party, because it's too muddy. The church is too mixed up with the bourgeoisie. We don't want anybody here who is harboring any sentimentality about an entity, an establishment that's on par with the bourgeoisie, that works with the bourgeoisie, that in many cases is the bourgeoisie. Now, does this mean that Lenin thinks that religious people shouldn't ever be allowed in the government? No, he's just talking about the party, right? He's just talking about the party and what they want for their party. Now, today, if you join a Marxist-Leninist party, are you expected to not be religious? Most of the time, no. Most of the time, people are fine with that. Most parties are going to be totally fine with you being religious, right? And because we have unique material conditions right now in the United States where I live, certainly, this is not the most pressing concern. The role that the church plays with the bourgeoisie in the United States, it's not like it's not there at all. There is overlap, but it's also like not the biggest deal. It's not so much of an issue that you're not allowed to be religious if you want to be a member of a socialist party. But this was the unique conditions they were dealing with in Russia at the time. We couldn't say the same about Russia in 1905. These issues were so interconnected there that was important for them and their party. Every party is going to handle this a little bit differently based on where you are and what your unique needs are. Autistic Betty 3 says, I declare our country is pretty religious in the government. It is. It definitely is. Our country is definitely religious in the government. But I think the extent to which we're talking about, and I'll this they are, eradicating anti-Christian bias, right? Yeah. We're obsessed with Christianity here for sure. But, the idea is basically that you're, like, Jeff Bezos is not also the head of the Christian church, right, here in the United States. We don't even really have one centralized Christian church here. Donald Trump is not the head of the Christian church of the United States. You know what I mean? So we do have it, but it's not as extreme as it was in Russia. And that's why here, Marxist-Leninist parties aren't going to tell you have to be an atheist to join them. Most of them. I don't know. There might be a few. There might be one. There might be one. That's all I'm saying. But you know what I mean? This is kind of the thing. Hi and welcome. We're talking about religion. We're doing a Lenin text on religion and socialism. Right-wing Christians in America view Donald Trump as a second Jesus. Yeah, they do. And again, that's not to say that there's no connection. But to the extent that you have to purge any religious person from your socialist organization, we're not there. We're not where they were. And when you read this text, you have to understand it through the context of what was going on in Russia in 1905. For them to say hard-lined to join our party, you cannot be a member of the Christian church, you see where they were getting that from, right? Here, I think you can be a Christian and a socialist, and it's fine. It depends on your relationship with the church, certainly. You can be a Muslim and a socialist. You can be a Muslim and a communist. You can be Jewish and a communist. Like, these things can exist here. That is fine. We don't, basically, in the United States where I live in, we don't have to take such a hardline approach that even being Christian taints you and you cannot be part of our political party. We don't have that because we're not dealing with the same unique conditions that they were dealing with in Tsarist Russia, where, again, as Chatter was saying, the Tsar was literally the head of the church as well, right? So, I'm just reading your guys' thoughts on this. Yeah, sometimes the church is the only community care workers have, and they do community work. Yeah, and you'll hear, Larry will talk about this too. I don't know if Larry's in the chat right now or it's already streaming, but Larry will say sometimes the places you can organize are through a church, right? When I was a kid and I was doing food not bombs, it was anarchist shit or whatever as a teenager, it was a church that let us do that there, you know? When we went to Cuba on our convoy, it was a Christian nonprofit center that let us stay there. They were Christians. They were religious. In Cuba, they let us stay there. They were communists. That was not incompatible with their religion, right? So, it's just important to remember we don't have to be as hardline about religion as they had to be in Tsarist Russia, where the head of their capitalist bourgeois government was also the head of their church. Right. So that's just the point I'm trying to really make here. Obviously, we know that there's some psychotic Christians in the government here in the United States. We know that. But, it is different. It's not as extreme as it was during Russia at the time. So we founded our association, the Russian Social Democratic Labor Party, precisely for such a struggle against every religious bamboozling of the workers. And to us, the ideological struggle is not a private affair, but the affair of the whole party, of the whole proletariat. If that is so, why do we not declare in our program that we are atheists? Why do we not forbid Christians and other believers in God to join our party? The answer to this question will serve to explain the very important difference in the way the question of religion is presented by the bourgeois Democrats and the social democrats, right? And remember, the social democrats, not how we think of them today. That's literally just what they called themselves as communists at the time, during Lenin's time in Russia. So we're talking about this. What is he saying? He's saying, here in the party, religion is not a private affair. We talk about it. But we don't say explicitly we're atheists, like that's an important part of our program. We don't say, well, if you believe in God, you're absolutely not allowed. But they as a party are forthcoming about the fact that as a party, we do not support God and we are not, or not God, we don't support religion and we're not a part of this institution that approves of the church, et cetera, et cetera. So what does that mean? What is the difference of this, right? The answer to this question will serve to explain the very important difference in the way the question of religion is presented by the bourgeois Democrats and the social democrats, the communists at the time. Our program is based entirely on the scientific and moreover the materialist world outlook. An explanation of our program therefore necessarily includes an explanation of the true historical and economic roots of the religious fog. He's like, look, we're just being realistic. We're just calling it like it is. We are talking about the history, the intrinsic history, the church, religion being linked to the class struggle and what that looks like. Our propaganda necessarily includes the propaganda of atheism as a result of that, right? The publication of the appropriate scientific literature, which the autocratic feudal government has hitherto strictly forbidden and persecuted, must now form one of the fields of our party work. So they're saying here, scientific literature that's atheistic in nature or goes against the church was actually being controlled and condemned, right, by the church, by the government, working together. So Lenin's saying because of that, now actually publishing like what we would consider atheist literature is part of our party work because we necessarily have to discuss the relationship between the church, between the bourgeoisie, between the owning classes, how this relates to capitalism, and how we are seeking to overthrow it. We shall now probably have to follow the advice Engels once gave to the German socialists to translate and widely disseminate the literature of the 18th century French enlighteners and the atheists. Why? Because that's part of their class struggle, to point out to the masses the role the church is playing in their oppression, right? But under no circumstances ought we fall into the error of posing the religious question in an abstract idealistic fashion, as an intellectual question unconnected with class struggle, as is not infrequently done by the radical Democrats from among the bourgeoisie. So Lenin's saying, like, we're not shitting on religion just to shit on religion, though. We're not out here just like, fuck you, fuck your God, fuck your Jesus. Lenin's saying, no, we're talking about religion as it plays into the class struggle because our main focus is the class struggle. So to come out and say we're atheists, well, that's not actually the guiding principle of what we're doing here. We end up being atheists because we are necessarily critiquing the role that the church and religion is playing in the oppression and exploitation of people. But that's not our focus. We are connecting everything back to the class struggle, and the class struggle comes first and foremost. Oh, Chatter has a question. Anyone know much of what happened with Russian Orthodox Church in the USSR? It's actually a good question. We can look that up as an addendum. Well, they killed 60 million Christians. We do know that. Just kidding. We'll take a look. We'll see what we can find in the chatter about that. It would be stupid to think that in a society based on the endless oppression and coarsening of the worker masses, religious prejudices could be dispelled by purely propaganda methods. And he's like, this isn't going to be enough to make people not religious. Pointing out the role that the church plays in your oppression as a worker in Tsarist Russia is not going to be enough to just make people stop being religious. Right? And he's also saying we don't have to tell people they're not allowed, explicitly they're not allowed to be Christian to participate here. But the fact is, look, part of our program involves talking about the ways in which the church oppresses workers. And if you're a super religious person, odds are you're not going to want to be a part of a party that does that. Sorry. We don't have to explicitly say you're not allowed. But like, we're also not going to stop doing this because this is an important part of our mission, because the church is actually a harmful extension of the bourgeoisie where we currently are. And this is really the point he's making here. It would be bourgeois narrow-mindedness to forget that the yoke of religion that weighs upon mankind is merely a product and reflection of the economic yoke within society. No number of pamphlets and no amount of preaching can enlighten the proletariat if it is not enlightened by its own struggle against the dark forces of capitalism. Unity and this really revolutionary struggle of the oppressed class for the creation of a paradise on earth is more important to us than unity in the proletarian opinion on paradise in heaven. So he's like, look, ultimately, we don't actually need every single person to be on the same page about if they think they're going to encounter a magical paradise in the afterlife where they die. That's not super important to us. What's really important to us, though, is that we all need to be united in understanding that we are fighting for a better world here on earth right now today. And in our current situation, that is incompatible most of the time with support of the church and our party, right? And it is what it is. And he's like, we're not doing that to be bratty fucking atheists who just want to shit on your religion. We're doing that because materially the reality of what we're encountering today is the church is part of the oppression of the working class here, right? So that is the reason we do not and should not set forth our atheism in our program. That is why we do not and should not prohibit proletarians who still retain vestiges of their old prejudices from associating themselves with our party. Again, look, we don't have to say explicitly that you're not allowed to be religious and join our party. But if you're in our party, you got to know that for us, religion is not a private affair. Our party is fighting for the liberation of the working class, and we view the church as an element of that oppression. So if you want to still be a part of our party knowing that, if you still retain vestiges of your old prejudices associated with the church and religion, we're not technically going to tell you can't join, but we're also not going to switch up the way we move to make you more comfortable. And that's kind of just it is what it is. And he says we shall always preach the scientific world outlook, and it is essential for us to combat the inconsistency of various Christians. But that does not mean in the least that the religious question ought to be advanced to first place where it does not belong at all. Nor does it mean that we should allow the forces of the really revolutionary economic and political struggle to be split up on account of third-rate opinions or senseless ideas, rapidly losing all political importance, rapidly being swept out as rubbish by the very course of the economic development. So he's like, the religious question ultimately, at the end of the day, is not that important to us. It is not our primary concern. We actually don't care if you believe in God or don't believe in God. But part of our struggle is to make sure that religion is not used as a tool to oppress the working class. So, in our party, we are not private about that. We do not say, you keep your religion to yourself and we don't talk about it. We talk about it. We fucking talk about it. And if you come to our party and you're a fanboy for the fucking Tsarist Orthodox Russian Church, you're probably not going to have that good of a time here. But that is important work and we are going to continue to do it. So, use your judgment, man. But he's also saying to put forward something and explicitly be like, we are an atheist program, would be to advance the idea of religion above the idea of liberation of the working class, or to muddy the waters of the platform and the program in a way that actually is not that important to the working class. If you as an individual believe in God, okay, that's fine. Why do we really care about that? We don't super care about that, right? But if you as an individual want to maintain the power and hegemony that the Christian church has over the working class in our society, we do have a problem with that. We do have a fucking problem with that. That's not okay, and we're going to talk about that a lot, right? So this is what he's really saying here. Everywhere the reactionary bourgeoisie has concerned itself is now beginning to concern itself in Russia with the fomenting of religious strife in order thereby to divert the attention of the masses from the really important and fundamental economic and political problems now being solved in practice by the all-Russian proletariat uniting in revolutionary struggle. This reactionary policy of splitting up the proletarian forces, which today manifests itself in Black Hundred pogroms, may tomorrow conceive of some more subtle forms. We, at any rate, shall oppose it by calmly, consistently, and patiently preaching proletarian solidarity and the scientific world outlook, preaching alien to any stirring up of secondary differences. So what he's saying here is, it's not our goal to make people fight about religion also. We're not stupid. We don't want you to fight about religion. Think back to the Chinese communists showing up in Tibet, right? Again, as the parallel for this. Oh, I gotta hydrate. Okay, more? Okay, I'm so hydrated. More. Okay, I'll do a little more. Just a little more. Okay. So when we think back to Tibet, right? The communists show up. They don't want to make these members of the working class, the proletariat in Tibet, hate them over religious differences. That's not their goal, right? That was not their goal in showing up there. They wanted to unite with the working class. They also did not want to ignore or sweep under the rug the oppression that the religion there was doing on the working class, the ties the religion had with the bourgeoisie, the fact that the religion there was the oppressive class. So this is what they were trying to parse out. You're allowed to have your religion. We do not care what your faith is. We're not going to take your faith from you, but we are going to take this oppression from you. And unfortunately, your oppression, your oppressors, are your religious leaders, right? And we have to figure out how to do this in a way that doesn't make you think we're trying to take your religion away. And that was their biggest challenge. And a lot of what happened with the Dalai Lama during this time was like hysteria. Like, the average everyday people in Tibet were so upset, so afraid that the Chinese communists were going to come take their religion from them, that they were kind of amping each other up on situations that were not occurring. They would take up arms and go to the Dalai Lama's house to defend him from invasions and attacks against him that the Chinese communists had no intention of doing. Because they were just so scared. And this is what Lenin is pointing out. We don't need to turn members of the working class against each other over religious differences. Just like when we looked at Yugoslavia, we looked at the USSR, it was important, as Tito was explaining during the revolutionary fight against the Nazis in Yugoslavia, we don't want to mention our nationalities at all, because the last thing we need to do is start fighting with each other over national tendencies when we have a much bigger fucking problem in our hands, and it's the Nazis. It's the same thing. Lenin's saying we don't need to start fighting with each other over religious differences. We have a much bigger problem in our hands, and it's the bourgeoisie. It's the ruling class. Now, are elements of the bourgeoisie and ruling class inextricably linked with the church here? Yes, and we will have to speak up about that. But as for your personal individual beliefs, that's fine. The party has our hardline stance on religion. The party will say we do not support the church, right? But you as a member of the party, you know, as long as you're okay with us not supporting the church, come on in. Your personal religious beliefs have no consequence to us. Have no issue to us. It's, you know, it is what it is. So that's kind of where the balance comes between what Lenin was saying. We think every person should be able to practice their religion. It should be a private affair. But in our party, it's not a religious affair. And the question when it comes up is like, well, will we in the party have to say you're not allowed to be in here if you're religious? What Lenin meant when asking that question, or the thought that should come to mind, is not just if you have belief in God or spirituality of some kind, but if you are going to defend the very church we seek to destroy because it is an apparatus of bourgeois control over the masses. And that was really the question. So no, you cannot harbor secret beliefs that you don't think we should abolish the role the church plays in society currently as a tool of oppression. You can't have that and join our political party, because that's not the platform of our party. It's not the platform of our party, though, that you need to be an atheist. It's just that you can't support the church as it exists today. Right. Okay. So I think this is very interesting. So the reactionary policy of splitting up the proletarian forces, he's like, we shouldn't do that. We should not be trying to split us up. The revolutionary proletariat will succeed in making religion a really private affair, so far as the state is concerned. And in this political system, cleansed of medieval mildew, the proletariat will wage a broad and open struggle for the elimination of economic slavery, and the true source of the religious humbugging of mankind. Okay, so that is the end of that, right? The attitude of the Workers' Party towards religion and Lenin. I think I understand why religion was such an annoying thing. Let's see how long it is. This is pretty long, but we'll follow it up with just a little bit of this. This is 4 years later, okay? So we talk about this here. This is the follow-up somebody recommended for this from Lenin. Social democracy, again, what they were calling their communist group at the time, bases its whole world outlook on scientific socialism, Marxism. The philosophical basis of Marxism, as Marx and Engels repeatedly declared, is dialectical materialism, which has fully taken over historical traditions of the 18th century materialism in France and Feuerbach in Germany. A materialism which is absolutely atheistic and positively hostile to all religion. Let us recall the whole of Engels' anti-Dühring, which Marx read in manuscript, as an indictment of the materialist and atheist Dühring for not being a consistent materialist and for leaving loopholes for religion and religious philosophy. So religion is the opium of the people. This dictum by Marx is the cornerstone of the whole Marxist outlook on religion. Marxism has always regarded all modern religions and churches and each and every religious organization as instruments of bourgeois reaction that serve to defend exploitation and befuddle the working class. At the same time, Engels frequently condemned the efforts of people who desire to be more left or more revolutionary than the Social Democrats to introduce into the program of the Workers' Party an explicit proclamation of atheism in the sense of declaring war on religion, right? So this is the thing. But this I don't think is any different than what we were just reading. Right? So basically what they're saying is the same thing we were just talking about. We understand that all modern religions and churches are instruments of bourgeois oppression of the masses. But at the same time, Engels was like, we should not introduce into the program an explicit proclamation of atheism. And this is exactly what Lenin was just kind of talking about, right, in the last text. Right? Anti-church? Sure. Anti-religion? Not really an immediate priority. Why? Because we don't want to turn the working class against each other. People like their religion, and we know that. And we don't want to take people's spirituality away from them because it's not rational. It doesn't help us advance our causes, right? But we'll go for the power structure at the top, certainly. So what does he talk about here? This is about Bismarck. This is as relevant to us too. Okay. There's a new distortion of Marxism in the opposite direction, he says, in the direction of opportunism. This has come to be interpreted as meaning that we, our party, consider religion to be a private matter, that religion is a private matter for us as a party. Without entering into direct controversy with this opportunistic view, Engels in the 90s deemed it necessary to oppose it resolutely in a positive and non-polemic form. To wit, Engels did this in form of a statement, which he deliberately underlined, that we regard religion as a private matter in relation to the state, but not in relation to themselves, not in relation to Marxism, and not in relation to the Workers' Party. So I think this is pretty much, this is a reiteration, I think, of what Lenin was just talking about. Such is the external history of the utterances of Marx and Engels on the question of religion. To people with a slapdash attitude towards Marxism, to people who cannot and will not think, that history is a skin of meaningless Marxist contradiction and wavering, a hodgepodge of consistent atheism and sops to religion, unprincipled wavering between revolutionary war on God and a cowardly desire to play up to religious workers, a fear of scaring them away, etc. The literature of the anarchist phrasemongers, the term anarchist phrasemonger is amazing. I just love that. Contains plenty of attacks on Marxism in this vein. So people are trying to paint this as being somehow a contradiction. And I don't think it is. And what Lenin is saying is that it's not, right? Tits out for Dankies. Hi. So anybody who's able to treat Marxism seriously at all, to ponder over its philosophical principles and the experience of international, efforts towards communism, will readily see that the Marxist tactics in regard to religion are thoroughly consistent and were carefully thought out by Marx and Engels, and that what dilettantes or ignoramuses regard as wavering is but a direct and inevitable deduction from dialectical materialism. I agree with this completely. It would be a profound mistake to think that seeming moderation of Marxism in regard to religion is due to supposed tactical considerations, the desire to not scare away anybody and so forth. On the contrary, in this question too, the political line of Marxism is inseparably bound up with its philosophical principles. Marxism is materialism. As such, it is relentlessly hostile to religion, as was the materialism of the 18th century encyclopedists or the materialism of Feuerbacher. This is beyond doubt. But the dialectical materialism of Marx and Engels goes further than the encyclopedias and Feuerbach, for it applies the materialist philosophy to the domain of history, to the domain of social sciences. We must combat religion. That is the ABC of all materialism and consequently of Marxism. But Marxism is not a materialism which has stopped at the ABC. Marxism goes further. It says we must know how to combat religion. And in order to do so, we must explain the source of faith and religion among the masses in a materialist way. So what is Lenin saying here? He's saying, yeah, obviously we know religion is a tool to oppress people. It's not great. We might know that. We might not support religion. But just being a Marxist isn't, we think it's bad, so we don't think anybody should be allowed to do it. That's not rational. That's not actually how you solve this problem. What Marxism actually says is, if we think that religion is being used as a tool of the bourgeoisie to oppress and harm people, but people like their religion, we must understand how we are supposed to combat this. And again, this ties back very, very, I think, explicitly to what the communists did when they showed up in Tibet, right? When they showed up, they said, this is fucked, but we don't want to take these people's religion away from them because it would only seek to harm what we are trying to accomplish here. It would only turn them against us. And for what, right? It's not that important to us that these people believe in some magical world of an afterlife or don't. What is important to us is that they are materially liberated here, right now, in the day-to-day. And we can recognize their theocracy is harming them. We can also recognize that removing their theocracy from them completely at this juncture might cause ripple effects that would ultimately make it harder to provide the material liberation on Earth now, right? So this is the understanding, and this is exactly what we saw play out in Tibet. So I think that this is such a good follow-up text. I don't think that it's necessarily hostile as we think of it. And again, as Lenin said, I don't think that it's, well, we don't want to scare them away, so we'll make concessions. No, it's not a concession to acknowledge this. It is intensely practical and exactly the nature of how we are trying to liberate people. It is exactly a part of it. Meeting people where they are, seeing them as they are, understanding the influence that society's had over them. If we understand that workers must become class conscious, why do we not understand also that it is going to take work for them to become conscious of the ways in which spirituality has played a role in their life up to this point? You know, like it makes sense that you have to meet people where they are, and that's not where they are. So why do you want to take that from them? The combating of religion cannot be confined to abstract ideological preaching. It must not be reduced to such preaching. It must be linked up with the concrete practice of the class movement, which aims at eliminating the social roots of religion. Why does religion retain its hold on the backward section of the town proletariat, on broad sections of the semi-proletariat, on the masses of the peasantry? Why do the poor need God, is really the question. And the poor do disproportionately need God more than the rich do. The rich like God, sure, but the poor need God. They need religion. And why? Because of the ignorance of the people, replies the bourgeois progressist, the radical, or the bourgeois materialist. And so, down with religion and long live atheism, the dissemination of atheist views is our chief task. Well, the Marxist says that this is not true. This is a superficial view, the view of narrow bourgeois uplifters. It does not explain the roots of religion profoundly enough. It explains them not in a materialist way, but in an idealist way. Just to say religion bad, that doesn't actually give us anything we can work with. That's not useful. Like, okay, what have you really accomplished by just saying religion bad? That's not helping. In a modern capitalist country, these roots are mainly social. The deepest root of religion today is the socially downtrodden condition of the working masses and their apparent complete helplessness and the faces of blind forces of capitalism, which every day and every hour inflict upon ordinary working people the most horrible suffering and the most savage torment, 1,000 times more severe than those inflicted by extraordinary events such as wars, earthquakes, etc. Fear made the gods. Fear of the blind force of capital, blind because it cannot be foreseen by the masses of people, forced us at the very step of the life of the proletariat and the small proprietor threatens to inflict, and does inflict, sudden, unexpected, accidental ruin, destruction, pauperism, prostitution, death from starvation, such is the root of modern religion, which the materialist must bear in mind first and foremost if he does not want to remain an infant school materialist, right? Why are people drawn to religion? People are drawn to religion because their lives on earth are bad. Why are their lives on earth bad? Because they were being exploited by the owning class. That's it. That's what this comes down to. So when you make religion the crux of your argument, you're kind of missing the point, is what Lenin is saying, is what Marx said, is what Engels said. We can have our own beliefs about religion, but it's ultimately not the most important thing in the room. It's only important insofar as it affects our efforts to liberate the working class from the oppression of the bourgeoisie. Right? Yeah. So, does this mean that educational books against religion are harmful or unnecessary? No. But it means that atheist propaganda must be subordinated to our basic task, which is the development of class struggle of the exploited masses against the exploiters. Atheism is not our primary goal. Atheism is only something that we talk about or we discuss insofar as it is assisting our main goal of the liberation of the working class from the hands of the bourgeoisie. And sometimes it will be relevant. Sometimes you will look at a situation like the fucking czar in Russia and you will be like, who the hell does this guy think he is? He's in charge of the church. He's in charge of the people. We have a 35-year life expectancy. Everybody's dying. And his fucking stupid ass church is telling you it's okay because you're going to get a magical, better life after you die in heaven. That is an important consideration to talk about the liberation of the people of Russia, right? But here in the United States, getting mad at a communist for being a Muslim or getting mad at a person for practicing Islam, is that in the United States really necessary? How important is that for our overall goal of liberating the working class from their oppression at the hands of the bourgeoisie? That's like a nothing burger. Why would that be our priority? If you're telling me tomorrow, make a list of the most important things we can do to help liberate the working class from the oppression of the bourgeoisie, nowhere on my fucking list is going to be make sure individual people don't practice Islam, right? Okay, that's not relevant to what we're trying to do here at all. Now, it might be relevant to call out the role that Christian churches play in fear-mongering and oppressing people socially here in the United States. That one might make my list, maybe. Wouldn't be the number one concern, but it'd be on there. Yeah. But this is kind of what Lenin and Engels and Marx are asking us to consider. Anything that has to do with atheism must be subordinated to our basic task, which is the development of class struggle, right? Your atheism only matters insofar as it helps advance the class struggle. And when it doesn't help advance the class struggle, why are we focusing on it? The proposition may not be understood, or at least not immediately understood, by one who has not pondered over the principles of dialectical materialism, the philosophy of Marx and Engels. How is that, he will say? It's ideological propaganda, the preaching of definite ideas, the struggle that enemy of culture and progress which has persisted for thousands of years to be subordinated to the class struggle, the struggle for definite practical aims in the economic and political field. Now remember, what did Marx say? Marx said that the history of the world was based on people's material needs, people's material reality. Your spirituality is not supermaterial. The existence of religious institutions in your society is. So your spirituality, as it is not supermaterial, is not of immediate pressing concern to the communists, right? And I think that's like a better way, an easy way to think about it. How does this materially manifest? If you just believe something I don't believe, but it doesn't actually materially manifest in any way that harms people, okay, who cares, right? You can think the color blue is purple. If it doesn't hurt anybody, why is my immediate focus going to be trying to change that? I don't really care. So this is getting us to the point in time where we switch over to map, but I do want to just wrap this up. This is a longer text on it. So we'll read just the conclusion to kind of wrap this up, and you guys can definitely look at this if you want an expanded view. The attitude of the Workers' Party to religion. Remember, this is the party. This is not what they think the government or the state apparatus should do in regards to religion. It's just for their party. So keep that in mind. And just to sum this up, by declaring that religion is the opium of the people, our group acted quite correctly and thus created a precedent which should be served as a basis for all utterances by Russian, basically communists, on the question of religion. Should they have gone further and developed an atheist argument in great detail? We don't think so. This might have brought the risk of a political party of the proletariat exaggerating the struggle against religion. It might have resulted in obliterating the distinction between the bourgeois and the socialist struggle against religion. The first duty of our group has been a discharge with honor. We did it. Our goal is not to wage a war on religion. Our goal is to wage a war on the bourgeoisie. And wherein those two things overlap, we can talk about it. But where they don't, why are we trying to distract from our mission? Is basically how this sums up. Yeah, religion is 10 contradictions away from being the primary contradiction. The second duty, namely, was to explain the class role of the church and the clergy, right? And we did that. And so this is when we'll talk about it. When it has to do with the class role that these elements are playing, sure, we're going to talk about that. We're going to do that. And then finally, the third solution kind of for this was to really talk about the correct meaning of the phrase religion is a private matter. Religion is a private matter, right? And he's saying, okay, the speech that was given, maybe it could have been a little better, but whatever. When we say religion is a private matter, that doesn't mean that we don't talk about religion at all. That just means that your personal beliefs are not really our paramount concern, right? It's private. It's private for you. It's not private for our party. We've ideas about it. But for the state, for the individual people, that just means that the state should not have a role in the church whatsoever. And the state should not have a role in your personal spirituality. Okay, so there we go. We got there. That is Lenin on the church. And on religion. Oh my God, I just totally popped my chat into a random part of OBS. Okay, I got you back. So what do we think? Does anybody have any questions before we get into our map segment for the day? Does anybody have any thoughts, any ideas about this? Any points of clarity? Any ideas for how it's important for us to communicate this and talk about this? What do we think? I think we are doing, let me take a look. Let's see. Lenin, win. Gender and identity is also a private matter. And I think we feel the same way, right? We're fine with any expression of gender or sexuality, but when it becomes apparent that it is being weaponized as a tool of the owning class, the tool of the bourgeoisie to harm and exploit the working class, that is the context in which we discuss it, right? Because then it becomes a working class liberation issue. And here in the United States, we see that happening. That's why it's such a major issue for us in capitalist places. The bourgeoisie, the owning class, is using issues of gender, of sexuality, as a wedge issue to divide us, to harm us, and to exploit and harm the working class further by claiming there's something wrong with us, that we are impure, that we are bad in some capacity. So just like the church in Tsarist Russia was working hand in hand, right, with the power structure, the bourgeoisie, in order to oppress and harm the working class, here in the United States where I live, if we were to think about the people who are like so obsessed with controlling and regulating gender and sexuality expression, if we were to think of them as a form of their own church, their own sphere of influence, right, in politics, they are aligned with the bourgeoisie and the owning class, attempting to use this as a way to further harm and marginalize the workers, right? It's very similar to that. So when people ask, well, why should I as a communist care about gay rights? Why should I as a communist care about ICE raids? Why should I as a communist care about racism against Black Americans? Well, because those are workers. And when our state is using these ideological things to attempt to further exploit and harm workers, it's no different than the state using religion to exploit and harm workers, right? It's still an ideology. The state is using these ideologies, these biases, this bigotry, this prejudice as an ideology, sure, but it's a tool they're using to exploit and harm people. So that's why we care about that as communists. Right. So let's get into map. Today in map, we're actually doing Eswatini, I believe, is what we're up to. Eswatini. Here. Yeah, churches are the main places your local Marxist-Leninist groups organize, especially for Palestine. Yeah, and many churches will let you. And again, many communists who were martyred for their political beliefs in Latin America were members of the clergy. Were communist priests, preachers, etc. Right? So we do have religious comrades out there who have given their lives in the pursuit of liberation for the working people. All right. Eswatini. I don't know how to pronounce this correctly. I hope I'm doing it right. Let's talk about it. Eswatini. I'm going to pull up our little documents we've been relying on, so we can talk about this. Switching to map. Malrich, the church we organized and lost grants, funding, and contracts from the local university because they hosted organizers. They've been forced to sell and were being evicted. Wow, it's very, very sad. I'm very, very sorry to hear that. Yes. Okay. Eswatini is currently not on the list of the NATO non-aligned allies. We'll take a look on the hyper-imperialism report. Okay, so Eswatini, Qatar, and Bhutan are still governed by monarchies, according to this document. Very interesting. They were a British colony until 1968. And they were not on the U.S. sanctions list. They have no history of U.S. military intervention, and they have 0 U.S. military bases. They did not vote on the Gaza ceasefire or the Russia withdrawal. Very interesting. Ah. It is also a very geographically small country, which is fascinating because we probably would want to have influence there. We have nothing in the Ned report, only insofar as there was natural resources we wanted or they were of a geographical strategic importance to us. But they are geographically an island in between South Africa and Mozambique, and they're landlocked. So let's take a look at what's going on in the news with Eswatini and the camps. We're going to search them with China, Russia, and Israel, and Donald Trump. Let's see what we've got in the news. Okay, so Russia joins China, Africa, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and Eswatini and other nations in expanding visa-free travel for Africa, while the U.S. tightens it. Okay, something about the Russia-Ukraine situation. Oh, it has to do with Eswatini. I just heard a really weird noise. Hold on, I'm gonna go check on Fork. I have no clue. Fork was in bed being such a good girl. It had to be like a cat on the roof or something. So weird. Okay, sorry. Fork is safe and snuggly and sleeping. She's so cute. Okay, so Russia pledges security training to Eswatini. Okay, Africa should follow Eswatini's lead on Russia. Got some interesting things going on. There's a lot happening here. So Russia's foreign minister also just took a trip to South Africa, Angola, and Eswatini. Visa-free deals with Eswatini. Okay, so they're kind of buddying up with Russia. Interesting. Okay, so Russia joins China in this visa-free travel, all right, and that includes Eswatini. Very, very major. Okay, press reader. Send tape server, Eswatini, okay. All right. The ongoing Russia-Ukraine war is not as distant from Africa as many might believe, warned EU Ambassador to Eswatini, Karsten Mecklenburg. He highlighted the far-reaching consequences of the conflict, emphasizing that African nations are increasingly at risk, both directly and indirectly, due to the war's global impact. The ambassador said this during a recent meeting with local media to mark 4 years since the advent of the Russia-Ukraine war. This conflict, which started with Russia's large-scale military assault on Ukraine, not how it started, has resulted in massive loss of life, displacement of millions, and severe geopolitical consequences. Mecklenburg has pointed out that while the war may appear geographically distant, it has already drawn Africa's citizens into his web. The ambassador shared alarming reports of South African and Ghanaian nationals being recruited by Russia as mercenaries and sent to fight on the front lines in Ukraine. We talked about this last week as well. And again, I said this before, but I'm really surprised liberals haven't figured this out and clung to this. Like, Russians are exploiting black people to go fight their wars for them. I feel like this would really hit with, like, liberal propaganda. And I am very surprised that they haven't taken advantage of that from a messaging perspective. I think that would really go hard for liberal propaganda. I know, I'm surprised it's not hitting. It's very interesting to see what hits and what doesn't. I know, I shouldn't give them ideas. So, when the conflict erupted in 2022, it exacerbated the challenges already posed by the COVID-19 pandemic, leading to soaring inflation, disruption in global supply chains. This made the war's effects keenly felt globally, including in Africa. And we've seen other people in Africa talk about this while we've been doing this exercise in Africa. We've been seeing a lot of people be like, fertilizer in particular has been impacted by this. Talking about the war in brief. This is bad propaganda. That is not how that happened. We already did this. Okay, so Russia's Lavrov pledges security training to Eswatini. This is from the Moscow Times from Russia. Russia's top diplomat on Tuesday pledged security training to Eswatini just days after the brutal murder of a leading human rights lawyer and opposition politician. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov was speaking to the landlocked country, Africa's last absolute monarchy, a day after visiting neighboring South Africa and just 2 days after Thulani Maseko was shot. Who's Thulani Maseko, though? We're going to learn about this person. Russia is prepared to assist Eswatini in training of security personnel, improving food production, and also assistance of other issues of mutual cooperation. 50 Eswatini security personnel were studying at the Russian defense universities. Interesting. Responding to a question on the political crisis in Eswatini, a minister said, as a matter of principle, we do not interfere with the political situation of any country. We are here to promote good relations, to create the best atmosphere for implementation of practical projects from the ground, industry, agriculture, information, communication technologies, etc. The weekend killing of Maseko has sparked worldwide condemnation. Maseko, 52, was shot dead on Saturday night by unknown attackers at his home around 50 kilometers from the capital, Mbabane, an opposition spokesman told AFP. He was shot through the window while he was inside with his family. Maseko, a leading human rights lawyer and columnist, was the founder of the Multi-Stakeholder Forum, a coalition of opposition parties, associations, and churches. Maseko's death came just hours after the king challenged activists fighting to end Africa's last absolute monarchy. People should not shed tears and complain about mercenaries killing them, King Mswati said. Okay. In 2014, Maseko was jailed for contempt of court over articles critical of the government and judiciary, but was acquitted on appeal and released later this year. Oh, bye, Virgo! Have fun! Okay, this is interesting. So, Eswatini has a king. And the king is like, hey, people are trying to overthrow me. No moral associations made on the political structure right now. Okay. And then one of the guys who is a known challenger of the king got shot. Okay, something's happening. Something's happening. Eswatini recognizes the ROC? Do not even think about it. We're not doing that today. That's crazy. Okay. Let's get more into this. Now, this Taiwan thing's interesting. Eswatini and Russia named top envoys to Taiwan. The Kingdom of Eswatini and Russia have named their top envoys to Taiwan. Eswatini Prime Minister Cleopas Dlamini announced this. Okay, they're in the UN, visited twice. Russia also has envoys to Taiwan. It is what it is. Ah! I'm sleepy, guys. I'm sleepy. This is older, though. This is from 2021. Let's see what's going on with them in the news with China. There is a Zay emote. I added a Zay emote. That's in there. No, goober. Now you're stuck on the pillow. Why you do that? She's so cute. Oh, China hates Eswatini right now. Wow, they're so mad. Okay. China condemns Eswatini for being kept and fed by Taiwan in travel row. This is from 22 days ago. This is current. Okay. The Taiwan president made a surprise trip to Eswatini. Taiwan blamed China for blocking earlier attempts to go. China views Taiwan as one of its provinces. Okay. Weird way to word that. Taiwan is part of China. Okay. Eswatini is one of Taiwan's 12 formal diplomatic allies. I feel like those 12 formal diplomatic allies, you know, they do not have official diplomatic relations with the PRC. Okay. She kind of does, huh? She comes out at the same time every day. It's always while we're on map. She's so cute. I like her a lot. Okay, so some politicians in Eswatini have provided space for Taiwan independence forces. This runs counter to the tide of history, and China strongly condemns it. Wow. And he went without announcing anything. And also, you know, this guy cuckoo bananas. This guy's super cuckoo bananas, for anybody who doesn't know. He's extremely right-wing. Let's see if we can find any info on this. Nationalist reputation. He is a nationalist, yes. Okay, let's see what's going on with them in Israel. Eswatini and Israel are deepening connections. Let's see what's happening. The UAE reportedly launched a diplomatic initiative encouraging 4 additional countries to recognize the self-declared breakaway region of Somaliland, which is not on our map, but is cuckmaxed. Sarasin, are you Taiwanese or are you from Eswatini? I guess president is Taiwan. Huh. Taiwan, yeah, okay. Because they have a king in Eswatini. That makes sense. Okay, thanks. So, all right. Basically, the UAE is trying to convince Zambia, Eswatini, Argentina, and the Dominican Republic to recognize Somaliland. Interesting. I'm looking to see Zambia. Yeah, okay. Zay-related sneezing incident. Sorry, everybody. Interesting. Israel is moving its Eswatini embassy back from South Africa. The tiny South African kingdom of Eswatini has diplomatic ties with Israel going back for over 5 decades. Eswatini is among the few countries moving closer to Tel Aviv. So the question is, are they cucked or are they cuck-maxed? Somaliland is a new right-wing breakaway attempt from Somalia that's like Israel of Africa, basically, and it's really getting pushed for by like Ukraine, Israel, the normal right-wing players. Is kind of giving cuck-maxed. Okay, let's see what's up. Let's see what's up with them. They don't have military bases there though, so maybe they're not cuck-maxed. Well, let's see what they got going on with the United States. Eswatini Trump? Nothing? Okay, no, that was a glitch. I was like, what? Huh. Okay. Eswatini quickly embraced Trump's deportee program despite doubts over its legality. Why Eswatini agreed to house Trump-era deportees. Eswatini says it received more third country deportees as a part of the deal with the Trump administration. So we are deporting random people to Eswatini from the United States. Just random people. They're not from Eswatini. And we're just sending them there. They're cuck-maxed. They're cuck-maxed. No. No, Goober. This is insane. Eswatini volunteered upon learning through the U.S. Embassy that President Donald Trump was looking for African nations to take in deported third country migrants, not from Eswatini. Eswatini was one of the first to volunteer. They were like, yeah, we'll do it. We'll be your little alligator Alcatraz of Africa. What the fuck? They are so cuck-maxed. They are so cuck-maxed. Holy shit, these people. U.S. State Department's keeping it secret. The deportees arrived. Girl, fuck Eswatini. We hate them. Just like we hate the U.S. government. No. Get down from there. No. This is the guy who was killed. Okay. Alright, I'm doing it. I'm calling it cuckmaxed. Yeah, cuckmaxed. Very, very, very bad. Okay. I get it. Right there in the middle. Alright, guys. Well, that was sad, but we did it. For $5 million, not even that much money. Jesus. In like the money. In the world of like country money, that's not that much money, right? Yeah. They are Cook Island and our lovely bisexual map. It's so true. We must hate the government, not the people, obviously. The working class of all nations. Yes, Emily is correct. You guys can't see this, but Emily is saying we must hate the government, not the people. The working class of all nations are one and the same. Yes, the government of Eswatini is bad. The people are actively trying to overthrow it, though, it sounds like. So that's good. That's positive. Yeah. So like a rich landlord, $5 million? What is that, like 3 bananas? Just like not even that much money. There we go. Sorry, wrong screen. Yes. Only Lesotho. The island countries are going to be challenging because I don't know their names. So we're going to have to pull it up on a map because, like, it's so small on here. Like, they don't even have their names listed. Like. So we're going to have to figure out what these are. Like, what's that? Can you guys even see that? That's a country right there. It's little. Lovely by map. Okay. So yeah, we're almost done with Africa, and then we're gonna wrap things up pretty quickly, I bet. It's all coming together though. It's quite fascinating. I'm loving map life. Did you guys have a good time today for Theory Thursday? We got 3 minutes. Yeah, so nice. We learned about religion. We learned about the difference between a party position, a private matter for the states. We learned about Eswatini. First time chat, yay. I'm glad you liked it. It's pretty good. You guys let me talk in my normal voice. Did anybody make fun of it? I didn't see. First time here, enjoyed. Yay. I'm so glad to hear it. Yay. I got to speak freely. Okay, thank you. I know it's like very... Well, I did a lot of research to try to figure out the voice thing. And it's that my natural voice, like the mouth, the shape you hold your mouth in is what makes it that way. So it's like more rounded, and that's why it sounds like this. So that's why when I usually talk, I try to flatten it, and it sounds less like that. Okay. Emily has a question for those of you who can't see. China and Tibet a lot. How come it's not imperialism when China invades Tibet? So, Emily, Tibet has always been a part of China. Tibet has never been its own country. Tibet is a part of China, and it always has been. So, yeah, that's a part of their country. Yeah. Oh, yay, I'm so glad, Nafi. I'm glad you like it. Yeah, Tibet is China. It's like saying it's imperialism for the United States to try to take over California. It like doesn't make sense. You're like, what? California is the United States. Same thing with Taiwan. Literally same thing with Taiwan. So yeah. Thanks everybody for coming. All right, I'm gonna send you Larry. I hope you guys have a lovely time with Larry. I'm jealous I can't come with you. I have to start my day. I actually have to take my car to get my tire fixed right now. There goes $100. You know, it's not gonna be fun. And then I have to start my day. So nobody ever says free the Donbass, which is crazy. You're so right. Why is nobody fighting for the Donbass region's independence movement? That's a country! That's their own country! Okay, alright. Sending you, Larry. Love you all. Bye. Dog beatboxing. Not really. I don't know how to actually... I was going to follow it up with that, but I can't. I can't actually. Okay, bye.